The Sheikh's Fake Fiancée. Azhar Sheikh's Book 1. Written by Leslie North. Narrated by Roberto Scarlato. Chapter 1. Elena sipped at the Turkish coffee, grimacing at the strange, bitter flavor that, no matter how many times she ordered it in fumbling Arabic, just didn't taste any better than the first 20 times. She swallowed it down anyway. It'll get easier. It's part of the experience. And sighed happily, enjoying the warm breeze caressing her on the balcony. This was their last morning in Beirut, Lebanon, before she and her friend Aubrey gallivanted onward to Europe. After 6 weeks on the road, backpacking and sightseeing and gawking and giggling, she found it hard to accept the fact that their trip was halfway over, which meant real life loomed just around the corner. She brought the cup to her mouth again to take a sip, but thought better of it. She smiled out at the azure Mediterranean Sea, watching the bustle and clamor of the street below. Cars honked, people filled the sidewalks, and street vendors proffered strange sacks in harsh voices. Gorgeous women strutted in high fashion, oversized sunglasses complementing inky black tresses. She had to pinch herself sometimes to remind herself this was real. Her parents would have been thrilled to know she'd made it this far. To Lebanon, of all places. The Middle East, the farthest from home she'd ever ventured. Her heart tightened in the way it always did when reflecting on accomplishments since her parents' passing, a mixture of pride and sadness. If only they could see her. Good Lord, would they be proud of her. A fresh college grad, seeing the world, less than 2 months away from taking the leap into trying to make it on her own as an artist. "Hey, girl!" Aubrey's voice cut through Elena's reverie. She turned to greet her friend, pushing aside the diaphanous drapes lining the balcony door to step inside. "So, it turns out checkout is in half an hour," Aubrey said, flopping onto the skinny twin bed. Elena set her coffee down on the small dresser by the balcony door. "Leaving here at noon was apparently a pipe dream. The sign on the reception desk made it sound like there were stern consequences for overstaying our reservation, or maybe it was just a bad translation. Shit." Elena surveyed the explosion of clothes, the still wet towel hanging on the back of the bathroom door. "Yeah, we better get a move on." Aubrey let out a long sigh. "Although we could always reserve an extra night here." Elena tutted. "No can do. We have a schedule to maintain." She tapped an imaginary watch on her wrist. Who knew where they'd be if it weren't for her rigid punctuality? If left to her own devices, Aubrey would probably still be in Jordan, lurking around the haunting caverns and monoliths of Petra. I know, Aubrey sighed, rolling onto her side. "But seriously, not even an extra day?" Elena leveled her with a look. "We paid for a ferry to Cyprus tonight." "You're right," Aubrey groaned, rolling off the bed. "Time to fill ol' Lumpy." Elena smirked at the pet name for her backpack her friend had coined during their trip. The two made excellent travel partners, which didn't surprise her because they'd also been excellent roommates in college. They'd been random roommates their freshman year, hit it off like long-lost twins, and had been inseparable ever since. If they had shared the same major, that would have been the only thing to make college better. But Aubrey's degree in history only matched Elena's major in fine arts in their mutual appreciation for very old art. Elena grabbed the loose sheets of paper from the small desk near the balcony door, the sketches she'd started outlining over the course of their trip. It seemed every other turn presented her with a new sight, a new moment, a new hue to capture. She'd have enough painting material for a decade after this trip, and maybe, just maybe, it would turn into a lucrative series down the road. The only thing urging her homeward was the itchy desire to feel the acrid sting of paint thinner in the air as she started, with a blank canvas. If only there'd been a way to fit her easel, 5 canvases, and the entirety of her oil paint collection in this 20-liter backpack. Like airport security would have let you through with a paint thinner. Elena, do you want these? Aubrey held up a handful of postcards from the nightstand between the 2 twin beds. Elena squinted, recognizing them as the postcards she'd bought to write to her parents. Yes, I need those. She leaned forward to grab them, flipping one over to confirm the letter she'd begun. Dear Mom and Pops, sometimes it seems like writing these letters means I could actually send them, and maybe you'd receive them, like any other traveling daughter experiencing the world. But I know when I get home you won't be there. You'd think after 3 years I'd have gotten used to this a little bit more. The postcard wasn't finished, but that could be taken care of later, during their boat ride to the island. Writing letters she'd never send had been an unexpected project during the trip. Somehow a therapy and a memento at the same time. They didn't make her as sad as she might have thought. Rather, it made her feel even closer to them, especially as she embarked upon such new adventures as a freshly minted college graduate. Elena organized all her papers and sketches into a small folder and then got to work stuffing her backpack. Leggings, tank tops, long sleeves, every manner of quick-drying, easily folded travel wear. Nothing spiffy. Except for the one nice dress she'd brought in case of an emergency fancy outing. She still hadn't worn it. I swear my underwear count keeps dwindling, Aubrey muttered as she stuffed some pieces into her own bag. Like socks in a dryer, Elena said. The hotel floors must inhale underwear. Their only sustenance. Aubrey frowned. Creepy and weirdly poetic. Elena smiled and hummed as she finished packing, then did a final sweep of the room and bathroom. All set. With just 3 minutes to spare, she and Aubrey slung their packs over their shoulders and tottered down the stairs to the lobby of the small hotel. At the gleaming hotel desk, a woman with platinum blonde hair and dark roots smiled at them. Aubrey breezed up to speak first, as she'd grown accustomed to taking the reins. We're checking out of room 303. The woman smiled sweetly, and a long string of Arabic came out. Elena furrowed her brow, trying to catch any word she recognized. Marhaba was all she caught. Damn it, Elena. You should have studied harder while you've been here. Aubrey glanced at Elena, then turned back to the receptionist. I'm sorry? Another string of rapid Arabic followed by a giggle. The receptionist seemed embarrassed, or something, and Aubrey and Elena shared open-mouthed looks. Well, here's our key. Aubrey slid their key card over the countertop, pointing at the suitcase, then at the sliding doors behind them. We're going now. She waved. Done here. Bye-bye. Mas as-salam. Shokran. The three shared an awkward smile until Aubrey and Elena began backing away slowly. Does she know we're checking out? Elena asked under her breath. We paid, right? We paid, Aubrey said. But I'm just not sure if there's anything else to the checkout procedure. She sure can't tell us. And we sure can't ask her, Elena said, hooking both her arms into the backpack straps. God, Arabic is hard. I wish I had studied way longer than the past few weeks. The front door of the hotel slid open as they approached it, revealing a clamorous, humid world beyond. The sea sparkled on the horizon, though the noise and chaos of the busy Beirut street made a stark contrast to the apparent calm of the water. You're telling me, and now we've got to switch to Greek. Aubrey grinned devilishly. I can't wait to bust out some of the ancient Greek I learned in college. That seems like it might be useful only if we find a time machine. Elena elbowed her friend. Okay, where are we going now? Someplace to hang until we head to the port? Sounds like a good idea. Aubrey reached into the pocket of her small crossbody purse. I wrote down the name of this popular cafe where we can go get coffee and use the internet and stuff. Let me find it. While Aubrey hunted in her purse, people ebbed and flowed on the streets, sometimes jostling or knocking into them, their large backpacks making them even more of a roadblock. After enough brusque pushing and grumbling from passers-by, Elena grabbed her friend's hand. Let's just start walking. Aubrey continued to hunt for the scrap of paper as they moved down the sidewalk, the clatter of Arabic vowels swirling in the conversations around them. After about a block, Elena spotted a closed-in patio area, along with vining greenery and a decorative sign. Though she couldn't read it, she had high hopes it was a cafe. Let's stop here and get our bearings, Elena suggested. As they neared, she spotted the telltale white Wi-Fi sticker on the front window. It even has internet. Aubrey nodded. Great, I could use a mid-morning snack, sort of like a reward for checking out of the hotel on time. Elena giggled. Just like we reward ourselves for waking up on time, or successfully hailing a cab, or sometimes just existing in the vicinity of a savory treat. Exactly, Aubrey grinned, pushing open the small wrought iron gate separating the busy sidewalk from the shrouded patio. Flowers and coiling vines lined the small open-air space, and an intoxicating scent hung in the air. Soft music pulsed from speakers by the door, through the front door. A warm and inviting cafe gave off a welcoming vibe. Exactly the sort of trendy gem they liked to find on the road. Elena glanced around for the best table for chatting and people-watching. A man sat in the corner of the patio, leaning back into his chair, one ankle crossed over his knee as he studied his phone. Elena felt something sizzle inside her, like the soldering of wax to a surface at high heat. The man was riveting. Gorgeous, with a square, rugged jaw and dark, thick hair. His clothing suggested wealth, crisp, perfectly tailored slacks, and a button-up shirt made from material that looked almost shiny. Silk, maybe? The bare shadow of stubble on his jaw caught in a ray of light breaking through the latticed patio awning. Her breath caught in her throat. God, it would be so nice to sketch this man. It would be nicer to get him to take his clothes off and maybe put those pouty, expressive lips all over her body, but drawing would suffice. The man pocketed his phone suddenly, jerking his gaze up. His eyes landed on her, scorching through her, and she froze as Aubrey pulled open the door, holding it for her. Elena gulped, unsure whether the look on the man's face was one of offense or confusion or something else. It was never fun to discover someone staring at you. But this guy has to know how damn hot he is. The guy smiled briefly, and then he winked. Elena's cheeks heated up, and she lurched into motion when Aubrey cleared her throat. Her friend wore a mock look of annoyance. Little distracted, are we? The door swung shut behind her, and they were in a new world suddenly. The cacophony of a cafe, the wafting aromas of coffee and pastries, the pleasant hum of chatter and business meetings. He would be a great model, Elena said finally, stumbling behind Aubrey as they made their way to the line. Very good profile. He'd be a great lay, Aubrey clarified, eyes on the menu board behind the cash register. Do you want anything? Maybe we can just get the wireless password for now. You need to buy something to get the wireless password? The register employee said in a thick accent. Aubrey nodded, grimacing. In that case, I'll have an almond croissant. You want anything? Elena shook her head, and the employee rang up the purchase. Aubrey dove back into her purse, scrounging for the cash. The front door of the cafe opened, and in sauntered the rugged man from outside. Hands in his pockets, his gait the exact definition of measured cool. Elena's neck heated up the closer he got. His eyes were on her, too, like a tractor beam. Elena swallowed hard, painfully aware of the man standing behind her, maybe only millimeters away. Was that his breath on her neck? She glanced behind her. The man was standing a totally normal distance away, definitely not within neck-breathing territory, and then jerked her gaze back toward Aubrey. "Do you have any extra pounds?" Aubrey turned to her, face creased with confusion. "I can't find my cash. I'm freaking out." "Shit." Elena rummaged through her own purse, pausing when the man behind spoke up in a smooth baritone. A long stream of Arabic followed out of his mouth, the employee behind the register nodding and saying something in return. Elena and Aubrey shared wide eyes. "He's buying your food," the employee said then, pointing behind them. Elena's heart raced, and she turned to face him again. His dark eyes were waiting for her, a knowing smile on his face. Chapter 2. Asim had to blink a few times to get his bearings. The gorgeous hazel eyes of this lovely lady were breathtaking. Her light brown hair, swept back into a messy bun at the top of her head, was equally enchanting. Something about her was magnetic. Maybe the way she'd been staring at him outside of the cafe. Apparently, she liked what she'd seen, just as he very much liked what he saw. "May I ask your name?" His English flowed effortlessly. The lifetime of English schooling assured it. She blushed again. Precious. And smiled. "I am Elena," she said. Gesturing behind her to the blonde friend receiving the croissant from the employee, she added, "And this is Aubrey." "Elena and Aubrey." He offered his hand to each girl, lingering a bit on Elena's embrace. "What lovely names. What lovely ladies. I'm Asim." Aubrey hesitated in the periphery, the croissant in hand. "Nice to meet you, Asim. Elena, should we go sit down?" Elena barely looked away, nodding. "Yeah, sure." "Have you ladies been long in Lebanon?" He held Elena's gaze. "About 2 weeks," Elena said. Behind her, Aubrey hunted for a vacant table. "And will you be staying longer, or are you leaving?" "We're leaving today," Elena said. "Unfortunately." "What a pity. Lebanon will be less beautiful without you." Elena grinned, jerking her gaze away. "That's very sweet of you." To the side, Aubrey cleared her throat loudly, setting her big backpack on the ground, scraping the legs of a chair against the floor as she pulled it out. "I should go over there with her," Elena said, gesturing toward her friend. "It was nice meeting you." "You as well." Asim clenched his jaw as she headed for the small table near the back wall. How odd that she abandoned a conversation with him. Most girls would trip over themselves for a chance to be wooed by him. Apparently she had no idea who he was, as he could expect of foreigners. But even so, he'd laid on the charm thick. Asim let out a terse sigh and tried to shake the memory of Elena's haunting gaze. It wasn't too often a woman like that riled him up. But what had she even done? Her gaze haunted him, seared through to his core, prompted questions and curiosity far beyond what was common for a passerby. And it was even more rare that a woman so beautiful didn't play right into his hands. "I'll take a baguette to go," he said in Arabic. He handed over the money, mind shifting to the concerning conversation he had been having with his mother that morning. Though she was heading out of the country in only hours, he worried her sudden silence via text message meant she hadn't taken kindly to the white lie he'd proffered. Her needling and meddling about arranging a marriage for him was reaching new heights. So bad, in fact, that he'd somehow, sort of, let it slip that he'd met a girl, that he'd made his choice, and his mother's choice was no longer necessary. That woman, of course, didn't exist. Nor would she ever, if Asim had his way. Not when the world had so many fleeting and interesting possibilities. So many hookups to be had. His phone buzzed as he received the baguette bag to go. Anxiety cinched his belly, and he pulled it out of his pocket. His mother. "I'm stopping over on my way to the airport." He stifled a groan. No, she hadn't taken well to the news at all. And now, he had to explain this mystery fiancé to her. When she was angry, she got so rigid and stern that the most frightening part was the total absence of expression. "Hey," a soft, lilting voice interrupted his screen time, and he swiveled to face Elena. She smiled sweetly at him. "Thanks again for buying Aubrey's croissant. We really just needed to use the internet, so that was a big help." "It was no problem at all." He smiled at the two of them, loaded up with their backpacks once more. "Listen, would you be able to do me a small favor?" Elena lifted a brow. "Maybe. What is it?" "Very brief and extremely trivial." He guided them toward the front door, holding it open so both could pass through before him. "I promise." Elena's lips curled up in curiosity, but Aubrey's gaze narrowed. "I just need you to play along," he said, noticing a sleek black sedan slowing in the curb lane. His mother's driver was in the front seat. "Here we go." "This is her now." The girls followed his gaze toward the car, then Aubrey squinted at him. "We're not getting into any cars." "Oh, no, no cars." He laughed a little, worried that this plan might backfire spectacularly before he had a chance to save himself. But desperate times required desperate measures, including roping in an innocent American girl to pose as his fiancée. "Trust me, this will be quick. Just follow my lead, Elena. You'll be meeting the woman getting out of this car." "We should get going," Aubrey said, sounding annoyed. "I'll do it." Elena smiled up at him. Asim rummaged in his pocket for the slippery little ring he'd picked up in a jewelry store a few days prior. He'd carried it with him ever since, wondering if he'd grow the balls to enact his ploy. It seemed his only way to freedom, the only chance to escape a life of misery at the side of a woman he didn't love, didn't like, didn't even want. And now, the foresight proved serendipitous. "The time is now. Here, just wear this." He showed her the ring, reaching for her hand. The car slowed to a stop behind a short wall of shrubbery. She'd be in front of them any minute now. Elena's eyes widened once she caught sight of the glittering jewels. She spread her fingers, and he slid the ring onto the correct finger. It was too big. But no matter. It would work well enough. The car door slammed, and his mother appeared on the sidewalk, her stride purposeful and strong, a teal pantsuit pairing nicely with her dark olive skin. Her black hair was coiffed with precision, swept back into a shoulder-length do, the ends slightly curling out. "Son," Safia began in Arabic, before she'd even reached him, "you cannot let me leave the country without clarifying this message." She waved her hand in the air, as if the text were floating somewhere between them. "Honestly, it's basically cruel. I am your mother. How can you have news like this without telling me?" Asim cleared his throat, glancing at Elena, who wore a tight, plasticized smile. Her hazel eyes were saucers as she looked up at his mother. In English, she said, "Mother, please, let's speak English, for Elena's benefit." Safia turned her dark, accusing eyes toward Elena, her mouth a thin line. "This is the girl I was telling you about." His heart raced so fast he might pass out. His mother's gaze traveled up and down Elena, as if she were judging her for a competition, then shifted to the overstuffed backpack at her side, then careened over Aubrey. "This is bad. This is very bad." Turning to Asim, she said, "Which is the girl you were telling me about? And why are there two of them? Are you planning on maintaining a harem?" Asim's mouth fell open, unsure whether to laugh or not. "This is Elena." He presented her, then gesturing toward Aubrey, he said, "And she is Aubrey. Elena's best friend. Elena wanted to have her near for the wedding. The air sucked in tight, like the world itself had taken a sharp inhale. Surprise radiated from everyone now. Sophia's accusing gaze smoldered at him. Yes, Elena said, giggling nervously. The wedding. Thank you for playing along. Asim mustered a smile. I told Elena that my mother Sophia was so eager to meet her. Please don't prove me wrong, Mother. Sophia's mouth stretched into a tight smile. It's lovely to meet you, Sophia, Elena offered, holding out her hand. It's a joy to finally see you after hearing so much about you. Sophia took her hand quickly, then dropped it. Elena just arrived, Asim went on. We stopped here to relax for a bit after their long flight. I wanted to ease her in, and my plan was to present her at the palace, as is typical. He cleared his throat, straightening his back. I wasn't trying to keep you in the dark, Mother. I simply wanted to wait for the proper way. We're dying to see the palace, Aubrey interjected, leaning closer. Asim smiled over at her. Before he could add anything else, his mother's driver approached. Miss Azhar, the driver intoned, touching the side of her arm. We must be on our way. Your flight is leaving soon. My mother must go catch her flight, Asim said, for the benefit of Elena and Aubrey. Such a shame to cut this meeting short. His mother stiffened, her dark eyes narrowing. With her perfect hair, immaculate clothes, and glittering black nails, she looked like a Vogue model ready to draw blood. I'll be back in 2 days. Asim's eyes widened. What? I thought you'd be in America for a week. Sophia's tight smile returned. That was the original plan, son. But things change. Like this. She gestured toward the girls. I must return as quickly as possible to meet with my son and his fiancée. I'll send you the updated itinerary when I have it. I want to return as soon as possible to begin getting to know my future daughter-in-law. She held his gaze, daring him to argue. Asim's stomach sunk. Of course. You two can get to know each other very well once you return. After a moment, he added, I'm looking forward to it. Sophia scanned each of them in turn, then leaned forward to kiss Asim on the cheek. She spun on her heel, heading back to the car, waving her hand in the air. 2 days! The door slammed shut once more. Her dark eyes bore into them through the window until the driver pulled away. Once the car was gone, Asim turned to the women, heaving a sigh. Thanks for that, he said, offering a grimace. I wasn't expecting her to show up. Elena gaped, staring down the street. Aubrey's brows were knit in confusion. He had a whole lot of convincing to do, and the likelihood of maintaining this ruse seemed to be impossibly slim. So, it looks like I have to ask you for one more tiny favor. Chapter 3. Elena stared at him, eyes round. This all had to be a joke, some kind of crazy, incomprehensible joke. She was being propositioned by a Lebanese man to be his pretend fiancé, while his mother flitted around like the Wicked Witch of the West with those stony eyes and terrifying grimaces. Are you serious? Aubrey's voice was shrill, which snapped Elena out of her stupor. She blinked up at Asim, struggling to find the right words. We're traveling, buddy, Aubrey went on. We have a schedule and a timetable and purchased tickets and a lot of places to go. She's right, Elena added. We're just visiting. We still have 5 more countries to visit. We're leaving for Cyprus tonight. We can't afford to miss the boat either. We only budgeted so much money for this trip. I can absolutely help with that, Asim said. Once this is all over, I'll purchase your tickets again. Whatever tickets you like, in fact. If you want to go to Hong Kong instead, I'll send you there. Or Thailand, maybe even Russia. Whatever you want, no questions asked. Elena cocked a brow. This guy had to be nuts. There was no way in hell a man with a face like that needed a pretend wife. I don't get it. Let me explain, he said, reaching for her arm. His touch sizzled through her, but he dropped it quickly. "You sound like a nut job," Aubrey said, in the way that Aubrey always managed to cut to the core of whatever Elena really wanted to say. "Just hear me out," he said, raising a hand. "I promise there's an explanation here." Elena narrowed her eyes at him. What explanation could possibly make sense, other than he was here filming for the Lebanese version of Candid Camera? It had to be a prank. And humiliation on a reality TV show wasn't part of her itinerary. "My mother has been pressuring me to get married for years. Since I turned 18, which means she's been waiting for a decade. She wants me to marry the daughter of a family that we do business with. The girl is fine, I suppose. I mean, there's nothing wrong with her. I'm simply not ready for the commitment. Not with her. Not with anyone." He paused, eyes flitting between her and Aubrey. "I must sidestep it, and the only way to do that is to prove to her that I am already engaged." When Aubrey sighed, Asim added quickly, "If you agree to this, you will be doing me a favor I could not possibly repay. I would be forever in your debt. And I assure you, I am a man that many people wish could be in their debt." Okay, so maybe it wasn't Candid Camera, but it reeked of something she couldn't quite put her finger on. She opened her mouth to respond, but Aubrey jumped in. "Are you some sort of rich oil sheik or something?" Elena turned to her, sending her a stern look. "Aubrey?" "What?" she shrugged. "It's just a question." Asim grinned. He looked more amused than offended. "Well, no, I am not. Though I am rich, and I am a sheik." Elena's stomach tightened. Rich and a sheik. Slight pluses in the whole matter. "My family's oil holdings are quite small," he went on. "Mostly we deal in technology and renewable energy. We have plenty of money, and we live in luxury." "Yeah, we heard. The palace," Aubrey said. "If you choose to help me, I promise you the accommodations will be vastly better than anything you've probably experienced thus far." He glanced at their backpacks, and embarrassment shot through her limbs. What must he think of her? Of common people like them? "If you're on a budget trip, I assure you, this will be the end of cramped hotel accommodations and pinching every last penny." "Lebanese pound," Aubrey corrected. Asim laughed a little. Elena crossed her arms over her chest, glancing at Aubrey. "Asim, can Aubrey and I have a minute in private?" "Of course." His sly smile made her knees weak. This man was too handsome. He stepped aside, and Elena turned to Aubrey, narrowing her eyes. "Listen, why are you hounding him like you're the one about to pretend to be his fiancée?" "I just want to make sure he's on the up and up," Aubrey said. "So whatever happened to not getting into strange cars?" She lifted a brow. "I thought this idea would be out of the question. Now you're basically haggling for my selling price." "Hey, plans change, right?" "Not ours." Elena crossed her arms tighter, gnawing at the inside of her lip. She couldn't possibly be considering it. And yet, somewhere deep inside, the idea churned hot and curious. What would it be like to go along with his scheme? It might not be smart, but damn, she wanted to find out, no matter how little sense it made. "I'm just saying it would be nice to change things up a bit," Aubrey went on. "After 6 weeks of budget hotel rooms and scrimping on meals, I wouldn't be opposed to a luxurious break. They probably have a crazy awesome house. I mean, talk about exclusive tours. This is a trip that not many other people get to take." "Even if it means I have to dupe his mother and get fake engaged to a sheik?" Aubrey grinned a little. "Right." "This is nuts." "Well, he's hot as fuck, which I'm sure you've noticed, so the eye candy is kind of like your prize." When Elena's narrowed eyes turned into a glare, Aubrey continued. "Besides, if we go with him, it'll be an adventure, off the beaten path, something neither of us planned or budgeted for." "And when we end up sold into slavery?" Elena leaned closer. "What then?" "We won't. Look at this guy." She gestured to Asim, who strolled the curb of the street, looking out toward the sea. He doesn't need to get into the slave trade to make money. You heard him. He deals with renewable energy. If anything, he spends his cash on hookers. Elena snorted. And fake wives. Exactly. Besides, we have the GPS feature on our phone. Anything happens to us, people are gonna know. Elena watched her friend, nibbling on her lip. The pieces were clicking into place, and the puzzle was entirely different than the one she'd started out putting together. We can also maybe set something up with some friends, some check-ins. If we don't call in every few days, they'll know to send help. Very practical, Aubrey said. And we can sign a contract, she said. That sounds smart, doesn't it? Incredibly, Aubrey smirked. Your first binding legal agreement with a sheik. This is a big moment in a girl's life. Elena rolled her eyes. Or something. We'll Google him, too. Find out all the dirt. She glanced behind her. Asim scrolled through his phone, his dark eyebrows furrowed. His mouth parted slightly, which made his lips look plump. Delicious. Kissable. She shivered. Would it be so wrong to spend a little time in the proximity of a sexy sheik? Okay, let's do it. Elena searched Aubrey's gaze, finding the same swirl of excitement and disbelief that she felt inside herself. I don't know why, but let's. Aubrey nodded. Let's. After you, Sheikess. Elena spun on her heel, heading for Asim, who jingled some coins in his pocket as he chatted on the phone. When he spotted her coming near, he hung up the phone and straightened, smiling at her. Do you have some news? His perfect teeth glittered in the sunlight. I'll do it, she said, brushing some loose wisps of hair away from her eyes. But only under a few conditions. Do share. We sign a contract of some sort, an agreement, but I can back out of this whenever I want. He nodded. I think that's fair. And we have our GPS tracking on, she added, so no funny business, no kidnapping, no slavery. Asim hefted, with a little laugh. Were those even options? My God. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. She smoothed back a few more wisps of hair that escaped in the boisterous breeze. I mean, this is the first time I've posed as anyone's fiancé. I don't know you. A sexy smirk overtook his face, one that made her insides clench. What if you fall in love with your fake fiancé? The thought made her blink, like stumbling over an unexpected step in the sidewalk. That seemed ludicrous. How long will I be doing this, anyway? I envision a week, he said, pulling out his phone. I can't imagine it would take much longer than that to derail my mother's carefully laid plans. Aubrey snorted. Great. So where are we going first? Asim swiped at something on his screen and then pocketed the phone again. To my house. Let's get you both settled in. A moment later, a sleek black sedan pulled up, similar to the one that had whisked his mother away. Shiny rims snagged her attention as it rolled to a stop. A driver hopped out of the front seat, heading to the trunk. Shall we? He gestured toward the back seat, leading the way. Just as Elena opened her mouth to ask about the backpacks, the driver appeared, holding out his hands to receive her bag. Thanks. She handed it over, as did Aubrey. That was fast. Asim pulled open the rear door, waving them in. Please, get in. Aubrey scooted inside first, all the way to the far window. Elena climbed in next, prepared to grumble about getting the middle seat. Except this middle seat was far finer than most middle seats. The leather was plush and soft. The car itself seemed wider, inherently more comfortable, like it had been covered with a final coat of elegant gloss. Even the middle console seemed to shine and glisten. Asim slid in next to her and shut the door, a pleasant silence settling in the idling car. The heat of him pressed up against her. Her heart fluttered. like maybe this was her high school crush instead of a literal stranger she'd met a half hour ago. "This is Mohammed, my driver," Asim said, smiling as the older man slid into the front seat. "He takes me everywhere. He's been driving me now for 10 years. "Do you know how to drive?" Aubrey said, leaning forward to look at him. "No." Asim shook his head, laughing a little. "I tried once, when I was in Germany on vacation. It ended very poorly." Elena lifted a brow. "Like, people didn't live to tell about it poorly?" "Oh, no fatalities. Only dented roofs." He glanced down at her, the sly smile sending her heart racing. Combined with the heat of him pressed against her, she wondered if this was truly a good idea. How could she keep herself away from a man like him? "The roof?" Aubrey arched a brow. "Where were you? A wild animal park?" "You should learn how to drive," Elena said softly, patting his knee. "It's a good skill to have, if you ever need to be a getaway driver or something like that." "I'd undoubtedly be the worst," he said, shifting a little beside her. Cologne wafted toward her, igniting her senses. His firm thigh pressed into hers, making her wonder exactly what he looked like under that suit. Maybe he was hairy, or maybe not at all. Caramel skin, or interesting tan lines from the Beirut sun. She shivered a little, looking away, out the window on Aubrey's side. At the very least, the coming week would be interesting with Asim at her side. And maybe a little irresistible. Chapter 4. As the sedan pulled into the cul-de-sac flanking his family's home, Asim couldn't help but relish the excited gasps and squeals coming from the girls. The palace was impressive, as it had been for the past 10 generations. What had started as an opulent outpost stationed at an oasis now beamed as a vast estate. Though the home was built far before the city had encroached so closely, the garden walls did a good job of creating the illusion of isolation. They would wander plenty before finding any evidence of the busy Beirut beyond. "We're here," he said once the car came to a stop, pushing open his door. He offered his hand to Elena, smiling as she stepped out. Her eyes seemed soldered to the whitewashed palace facade, all 4 stories of its elegant grandeur. Stained glass ovals dotted the tops of each window. The winding sandstone staircase led up to a mid-level patio, flanked with an intricate railing. He'd overlooked the premises from that post too many times to count, but today, suddenly, it was like he was seeing it for the first time. "Are you serious?" Aubrey's neck craned as she took it all in. He smiled down at Elena, pleased to find her similarly in a state of wonder. "Extremely," he said, nodding at Mohammed as they began to unload their things. "This is like a freaking resort," Aubrey continued. "Seriously, how huge is this place? How many people live here?" He tilted his head as he thought. "Oh, I'd say about a dozen at any given time." Their footsteps crunched over the gravel pathway as he led them to the staircase. The scent of jasmine reached him as they passed the delicate plants. He took a deep inhale. "Not including the staff." Aubrey furrowed a brow as they climbed the stairs. "Okay, so that's like bigger than any party that could ever fit in my apartment back home. And these people just live with you." He smiled. Their worlds couldn't be more different. He liked the chance to show these young women his version of life, and for some reason, he was curious to see their version as well, especially quiet Elena's, who seemed to have way more flitting around in her head than she let on. "The estate is quite large, yes." He pushed on the tall double doors leading to the foyer. They groaned as they opened, revealing the shiny floor, which boasted large white marble squares with crisscrossing marigold and auburn patterns. "You could be here for days without realizing anyone else is here. If you know how to do it, at least." He turned, winking at Elena. The blush in her cheeks was the only response he needed. He led them through the main foyer, past the enormous pots bursting with luxurious ferns, under dangling chandeliers dripping bright baubles. He turned a corner, leading them toward the guest wing. Sunlight streamed into the hall from the wall of windows, which looked over the ample inner courtyard. Gardenia floated in the air. His mother's favorite flowers were a constant presence in his home. "What do you think?" He turned to Elena. She'd been notably silent, which made him even more eager for her input. Yet he couldn't figure out why. Of course she'd be impressed. Everyone was. She sighed slightly, then said, "It's like someone turned a sunset into a home." He stilled, meeting her eyes. The words reverberated in his head, echoing on repeat. "Wow." Aubrey glanced at him, the corner of her mouth lifting. She has a way with words, but an even better way with color. In all the years of visitors, gawkers, curious parties, and educated elites, he'd never heard it put quite that way. Eleanor offered a small smile, as though she could see the exclamation points bouncing around in his skull. "Well," he continued walking, leading them toward the guest wing, where their rooms would be. "Thank you for that. Would you prefer a room together or separate rooms?" "We're not lesbians," Aubrey said, slicing her hand through the air. Asim grinned, glancing back at her. "I never thought you were. At least I hoped you weren't. I merely offered it as one of various options while staying in my home. We have plenty of rooms, so you may each have your own. But if you'd prefer to share one, that can be arranged as well." "We can Elena began. "I'd like my own room, thank you," Aubrey cut in, sending a look to Elena. "After 6 weeks on the road, I'm due for a little alone time, and no offense, but this girl snores." She jerked a thumb to Elena. "You better watch out on your fake honeymoon." Asim chuckled, catching Elena's warm gaze and the slight color in her cheeks. "I do not snore," she protested. Sure. Aubrey followed him as he pushed open a large door leading to the first guest room. He gestured for her to enter. "This will be your room, Aubrey." He stood in the doorway as she inspected the room, hands clasped behind his back. A 4-poster bed sat in the middle of the bright room, sunlight streaming in through the gauzy curtains. "Yours is right down the hallway," he said, turning to Elena, who tested the softness of the bed. "I'll show you that next, so you'll be able to find your way back here." Aubrey's shocked gasp rang out through the room. "Oh my God, you guys! This bathroom!" Asim grinned, nodding. "I take it you're satisfied with the accommodations?" "I could live in this bathroom alone for the next week," she said. Something clanged. Maybe she was rummaging through the drawers in there. "I'll be in here if anyone needs me." Asim stepped into the hallway, jerking his head to the side. "Let's go see your room." Elena strolled at his side, neck craned as she took in the surroundings. A thrill raced through him, imagining what her sweet take might be on the events of today. "I hope your stay here can make up for the rude nature of my request," he said, rubbing at his jawline as nervousness overcame him. "I'd be happy to explain it to anyone who needs to know." He glanced at her, the words heavy on his lips. "Including your boyfriend, or whoever." Elena looked up at him, her hazel eyes sharp as a whip. "Well, my CIA sniper boyfriend will want to know why my phone has gone off the planned course," she tutted. "He's an ex-Navy SEAL, too, so he's, trained." Asim furrowed a brow. Strange, this hadn't come up before. "He'll probably show up here and ask questions before I can do much explaining to him over the internet, though." She sniffed. "He might take a few people out, but hey, that's the price of being his woman, you know?" Asim stilled, watching her with a hard look. Was this the cost of his spontaneity? He'd asked a totally controlled woman to pose as his fiancée. Great. But when the hint of a grin crossed her face, he knew he'd been fooled. "You're kidding," he said, almost like a command. "Please tell me you're single." "I am," she laughed. "I don't have a boyfriend. I just wanted to shake that rock-hard alpha foundation of yours." Her words rattled around inside of him, making rowdy echoes that bothered him. But instead of thinking too much about it, he pushed open the door leading to Elena's suite. It creaked open, revealing a room similar to Aubrey's, but grander, more elegant. There was more open space, more sunlight, more potted plants, and a larger bathroom, boasting bathtub, shower, infinity pool, and a jacuzzi. "This is your room," he said, watching as she strolled over the plush white carpet, dragging a hand along the rich mauve comforter. "It was my grandmother's favorite room." "I can see why." She glanced back at him, those hazel eyes and high cheekbones snagging him like a fishing line. He swallowed hard. "The lines in this room, the colors." She paused, craning her neck to look at the stucco ceiling, which was decorated in geometric motifs. "It's just a riot of expression." His throat tightened, but he wasn't sure why. He leaned against the doorframe, enjoying the way she dragged her fingertips over almost every surface, pausing in front of every detail and intricacy in the decoration. There was something methodical in the way she absorbed her surroundings, like she might be filling a catalog somewhere in her mind. After she'd explored nearly the whole room, she looked over at him, surprise on her face. "Sorry," she breathed. "I just get lost. Thanks for showing me to the room." "It was my pleasure," he said, wanting to do anything other than leave. "I'm sure I can find my way back to Aubrey's room," she said, offering a small smile. "So don't worry." He opened his mouth to respond, to continue the conversation, but the truth jolted through him. She was dismissing him. It was time for him to leave. "Right. Well, if you need anything at all, pull this cord here." He pointed to the silk rope hanging near the door. "One of the staff will attend to you quickly. I'll make sure someone is posted." She arched a brow, gaze lingering on the rope. Her mouth opened, as though she would add something else, but then clamped it shut. She offered a smile instead. "I should unpack. Take a real shower." He nodded, looking her up and down. "Maybe I could join you for that shower." The thought scorched through him, almost rattling him. When he'd laid eyes on her earlier that day, she was simply beautiful. Now, she was the most gorgeous fruit that he was desperate to taste. His fake fiancée. "Settle in, and feel free to wander the palace. Go anywhere, explore. This is my home, which is now your home." He grinned at her as he pulled the door shut. "I'll find you two later to catch up." Once the door clicked shut, he leaned his forehead against the molding, raucous thoughts clouding his mind. "I want you." Somewhere between the coast of Beirut and the guest wing of his house, his very real attraction to this woman had blossomed into a very dangerous desire. If she would be his pretend girlfriend, then it stood to reason they should enjoy all the benefits that came with that status. At least once before she left, if only to make the ruse more compelling, more viscerally raw. And if he had anything to do with it, he'd make sure that potentially became a delicious reality. Chapter 5. "Cannonball!" Aubrey launched herself from the side of the infinity pool, tucking her knees into her chest, launching a tidal wave of crystalline water. Elena giggled, turning away from the spray, floating closer to the stone wall lining the edge of the pool. Once Aubrey resurfaced, she hooted with laughter. "Okay, I think that was my last one." "About time." Elena wiped water from her face. They'd been lounging and gabbing in the extensive network of palace pools and waterfalls for hours. She'd nearly had her fill of dives, cannonballs, and water in general, even though it seemed sacrilegious to even think it. "I'm pruning," Aubrey said, examining her fingertips. "Me too." Elena stepped up the stone steps, holding on to the wrought iron banister leading out of the pool. The infinity pool was set above the terrain of the property, which made the infinity edge blend into the expansive, rolling greenery of the gardens. And then, on the horizon, skyscrapers and city buildings peeked up over the edge of the property, reminding them of where they were. "I might be ready for a rest," Elena said, reaching for a plush white beach towel a palace attendant had brought them. "All this luxury is exhausting." "You're telling me." Aubrey wrapped another towel around her body, resting her hands on her hips. "I could get used to this." "It's just temporary." Elena patted her hair dry, then swooped it up into a turban. Though really, she could get used to it too. Perhaps too easily. "Don't you forget that either. It's a week, or whatever, but definitely not forever. Listen, once Asim gets back, we have to grill him on a few points." Aubrey held out her hand, ticking off each finger as she listed. "First of all, can they provide us with unending falafel? Secondly, does Asim have any brothers who are similarly single and in need of a fake wife? Third—" Elena raised a hand, laughing. "Okay, let's save these for when he comes around later." The two girls started down the winding, shrouded path that led back to the palace. Birds twittered, sweet songs that made Elena's heart flutter. The whole garden was the definition of well-manicured and lush. And there was so much more to see. She didn't know what else there was, but she could sense the vastness of the property, all the unexplored corners and crevices that called her to find their secret shadows and unseen treasures. "It would be fine if this whole game lasted longer than a week, though, right?" Aubrey lifted a brow, her light freckles slightly more pronounced after an afternoon in the sun. "I wouldn't mind staying here 2 weeks, or 3. They rounded the corner, coming up on a patio that led to the palace. As Elena opened her mouth to respond, a voice broke through. "Ladies, I see you've been enjoying the afternoon." Asim emerged from the doorway leading into a sunroom, a pleased grin on his face. His gaze traveled up and down her body, both nerve-wracking and thrilling. Maybe he liked what he saw in her skimpy bikini, or maybe he was secretly dismayed. After all, he was probably used to some other standard, models and celebrities, no doubt. "Enjoying is an understatement," Aubrey said. "That infinity pool is awesome." "Have you seen the gardens in the North Quarter?" Asim's dark eyes settled on Elena, sending a shiver through her. "Not yet," she admitted. "We wandered until we found water, and that's where we got hung up." "Well, you must see it," Asim said. "Let's go now." Aubrey grinned, pinching her friend's waist. "I think I'm going to go take a nap, guys." Elena looked over at her, suddenly scared about navigating the palace with only Asim. She needed the buffer of her friend, the assurance that she wouldn't rip his clothes off in broad daylight and do something indecent. "Are you sure you don't want to come see the gardens?" "I think you'll enjoy the garden far more than I will," Aubrey said, lifting a brow. "And I hope that enjoying is an understatement." She winked, sauntering off, leaving Asim and her alone on the patio. "Let's go." He reached for her hand, which she offered to him before thinking twice. He tugged her down a different path, one that she hadn't noticed before. A few steps later, she realized she was still basically naked. "Shouldn't I go change?" She touched the turban on her head, somewhere between confused and delighted. Wandering the palace in a bikini after a dip in a saltwater infinity pool was pure pleasure, but maybe there was etiquette being overlooked. "You're fine." He glanced back at her, his dark gaze sweeping up and down her body again. It probably feels nice to dry in the sun, doesn't it? Divine. She tilted her head back as the path wound through shrubs and patches of flowers, the bright sun warming her cool skin. Asim kept his hand tight on hers, a reassuring heat. "What did you do today?" she asked. "Well, aside from getting engaged," he laughed. "Mostly work. I oversaw a few new acquisitions today." "Where do you work?" "My family owns a business. We have 3 main branches, one in the Middle East, one in Europe, and one in the US. "Ah, an international company." Elena grinned. "Very nice. You handle all of them?" "No, I oversee the European branch. My brother handles the other 2. She tutted. "Brothers. Aubrey will be happy to hear that." His boyish grin nearly broke her heart. "Oh, yeah? Well, she can meet them soon. You too." Excitement quivered through her. Meeting the brothers? The rest of the family? What a strange turn this trip had taken. Asim's grip on her hand tightened as they strolled toward a glass-framed building, a greenhouse. He pulled open the door, a humid blast of air greeting her. "Welcome to the greenhouse," he said, shutting the door behind them. Rows and rows of exotic plants sprawled before them, strange vining plants boasting bold blooms. Some blossoms looked vaguely erotic, lush curves, heavy pendulums. She'd never seen a more fascinating or arousing greenhouse. Gravel crunched underfoot. "Wow," she breathed, unable to focus on only one beautiful thing. Everything in the greenhouse vied for her attention, yanked at it like an impatient child. This is a miracle. So much life and color under one small roof. Asim smiled, surveying the area. "Absolutely. And so much pure oxygen." They walked down the main row of plants until they came to the door at the other end of the building. Pushing through it, Asim led her toward an area of the outdoor garden flanked with tall, skinny trees. Big square stones formed an expansive, uneven pavement. Elaborate pots dotted the walkway, overflowing with bright red flowers. "Your home is beautiful," she said, fingering a blossom as they walked by. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you, since I can tell you have an eye for beauty." She grinned, feeling the blush creep into her cheeks. "Why do you say that?" He shrugged, heading toward a simple stone bench set off to the side. "There's something very artistic about you." As far as she was concerned, that was the highest compliment someone could give her. "Thanks for that. I appreciate it. I am an artist, by the way." He snapped his fingers. "I knew it. What do you do?" She sat on the bench slowly, transitioning into the hot bite of the sun-warmed seat. She absent-mindedly traced patterns in the rough surface. "Mostly oil, but I also sketch. I love landscapes, cityscapes. I'll do portraits when compelled, but I'm mostly a fan of colors." Asim nodded, like this cleared up everything for him. "I'd love to see your work." "It's all at home." She gazed into the distance, suddenly desperate to show him what she did with her time and passion. Not like it mattered, really. He was just a stranger. A business arrangement, however unconventional. But something inside her was eager to woo him, to show him the depths of her soul. "You'd have to come to my house and see it." He grabbed her hand, squeezing it in his lap. "Maybe I'll do that someday. Would your parents mind?" She laughed a little, but the smile dropped from her face. "You don't have to worry about them. They're not around anymore." Asim grimaced. "I'm sorry. What happened? Or should I not?" "It's okay." Her heart tightened a little, but just the way it always did when telling someone what happened. "They died a few years ago. It was unexpected, but they were older. They had me later in life. My mom passed first, and then my dad died a few months later, probably of a broken heart. She sighed a little, offering a small smile to him. They were soulmates. Asim's grip on her hand had turned into stroking sometime during her explanation. His rough thumb made a warm path over the top of her hand. His other arm had snuck around behind her. He squeezed her hip, which made her breath hitch. I'm sorry you had to lose them so young. His voice dropped a little, came out raw and soft. His head came closer, like he might press his forehead to hers. That must have been so difficult. The heat of his nearness clouded her mind, and she struggled to think straight, to keep focused on the conversation. It is, sometimes. But I had a rich life with them. He squeezed again at her hip, which made her mind blank. I think they're watching over me. They know all the cool stuff I'm doing now. Like posing as my fiancé? His voice came out softer at her ear. Goosebumps erupted over her arms, and she looked up at him, surprised to find him so close. His dark eyes were vortices of desire. From so close, the angle of his jaw was like a decadent treat, one she couldn't say no to if she tried. Exactly, she giggled, but it came out throaty. Kiss me, kiss me, kiss me. He had to do it first, because maybe there was still a chance she was reading this wrong. Or was there? The scent of his cologne grew stronger, his breath coming out in hot puffs at her chin. Dear Lord, kiss me. Thanks again for your help, he murmured, fingertips skating over her forearm. You were quite unexpected, but just what I needed. It was like fate sent you to me. He squeezed her hip again, this time drawing a surge of moisture in her swimsuit bottoms, and then she knew it. Game over. If he could make her wet on a garden bench, this was a serious problem. Kiss me or fuck me now. That's what fate had decreed. A garden hookup. His gaze raked over her face, lips poised for the kiss. Electricity sizzled in the air between them, and she leaned closer, smoothing her hand over the flat plane of his chest, pleased by the hardness beneath the crisp fabric. She tilted her head back, opening her lips, urging him nearer. And then he dipped down, catching her chin between thumb and forefinger, stilling her face as his lips brushed velvety soft against her own. The first kiss stole her breath, but the second one replenished it. Energy surged through her, and she swallowed a squeal of delight. Thank you, Aubrey, for being smart and taking a nap. They kissed over and over again, one desperate, sloppy, passionate kiss leading to another. Asim made a small noise, cupping the side of her face in his big hand, turning so they faced each other. Elena opened up her legs, straddling the bench, scooting closer to him. He pulled away, drawing a ragged breath, looking down between her legs. Reality crashed around her. What were they doing? Well, she said, clarity making slow steps across her mind. We took the ruse a step too far, huh? Turn around. The steely command sent shivers through her, and she immediately complied, straddling the bench again, facing away from him. He scooted closer to her, pulling her back against him, his rock-solid chest meeting the curve of her back. She let out a small sigh as he wrapped his arms around her, crossing over her breasts. Her eyes fluttered shut as his soft kisses found the curve of her neck. You're so beautiful, he murmured into her ear, letting a hand drift down over her belly. She tensed at the contact, his touch sending thrills under her skin.
Sorry, readers. Here's where we fade to black due to YouTube explicit content guidelines. If you dream for the steam, you'll need to take a look in the book.
Mmm. He nipped at her earlobe. She blinked lazily, the sharp focus of the world around her receding into normalcy. It was like the whole world around her had responded to his hand, that orchestrator of pleasure. And now that it was over, back to regular green, regular blue, regular white. That was intense, she said, looking up at him. His lips curled up at the corners. She could have him look at her like that forever, and still want more. Yes, that's one word to describe it. That better not be the last time, she said, clutching at the wrist above her panty line. Oh, you want more? He dragged his lips over her forehead, a knowing smirk on his face. There's so much more to come, but you'll have to wait. Chapter 6. Asim reached for Elena's hand under the table, nodding at the maid as she cleared the dinner plates. He and the women had shared a classic Lebanese spread: pita, tabbouleh, baked kibbeh, and kebabs. Aubrey sighed, patting at her belly. That was the best food I've had in this country so far, she said. Asim smiled at her, then over at Elena. He'd been watching her every move with amplified interest since their intense moment in the garden earlier. She was captivating, even more so after he'd fingered her into ecstasy. Really, he was just counting the moments until he could get her alone again. I agree, Elena said, giving his hand a little squeeze. Your cooks are talented. The best in the country, he confirmed. Approaching footsteps yanked his attention to the arched doorway. Anxiety flashed through him, hot and fast. Surely it was one of his brothers, which meant a lot of questions were headed their way. Asim! Nasir, his older brother, stepped through the arched entryway, a knowing smile on his face. The presence of the women didn't seem to surprise him as he strolled to the table. No doubt their mother had called him and apprised him of the latest happenings. Won't you introduce me to your two lovely guests? Aubrey turned toward the voice. Even from the side, Asim could see the way her jaw clattered to the floor upon seeing his brother. Ladies, this is my brother Nasir, Asim said, eyeing him as he bent down to kiss Aubrey on the cheek. He came around the table to greet Elena in the same fashion. Nasir, this is Elena and Aubrey. Elena and I have been dating for quite some time now. As I've heard. He sat in the empty seat at the other end of the table, smoothing down his button-up. He signaled to a maid and asked for a glass of wine. Then a big, sugary smile overtook his face, the type he always used with his American clients, the type that told Asim a thinly veiled inquisition was headed his way. Elena and Aubrey arrived yesterday, he said. It was time to take the offensive before his brother launched his own attack. I've been so looking forward to introducing them to Mother's favorite. Nasir laughed. Really? We're going straight there? Asim chuckled. Ribbing his brothers was one of his favorite pastimes. Ah, you're right. I'm sure they'll see soon enough. Nasir shook his head. Perhaps Mother prefers me because I'm the responsible one. After all, you're always up to no good. Addressing Elena and Aubrey, he said, Be careful, both of you. You wouldn't believe the sort of things this one gets into. The girls giggled politely, but the comment struck a little too close to home for his tastes. Up to no good is code word for having fun, Asim clarified, which is something my brother hasn't learned how to do. Nasir received a glass of wine from the maid graciously, taking a sip before responding. I have fun in my own ways. Coincidentally, those ways are also known as fiscal responsibility and world domination. Asim snorted, taking a sip of his own wine. I know those as boring, but maybe your English has improved more than mine since living in the U.S. Oh, you live in the U.S.? Aubrey leaned forward, chin propped in her palm. She watched Nasir as if a movie star had materialized in the dining room. I do, he grinned, leaning back into his seat. West Coast. And you? Oh, her eyebrows shot up. Same. We're from California. Beautiful state, isn't it? My primary home is near LA, but I travel often. Nasir grinned, which prompted a giggle from Aubrey. Asim looked over at Elena to find a knowing smirk on her face. Primary home, huh? Aubrey flushed, taking a sip of her wine. If this home is any indicator, I can't imagine what your stateside home must look like. Far more reserved, Asim interjected. Nasir's tastes don't allow for so much marble and extraneous patterns. Nasir nodded. It's true. I'm a man of simple, clean tastes. Aubrey cleared her throat, the blush cresting her cheeks. So, tell me more of this engagement. Nasir nodded toward Elena, who squeezed Asim's hand like she wanted to break it off. I'm dying to know everything. Elena smiled wide at him. Know everything, huh? That might take a while. The irony killed him. So where did you meet? Nasir asked. Elena cleared her throat, turning to face Asim. Well, it was very unexpected, really. Yes, Asim added. We just kind of ran into each other. Where? Nasir's steely gaze told Asim he was logging this, as if it would be used in court testimony later, with his mother serving as judge. Beirut, Elena said, at the same time Asim said, In the States. Shit. They turned to each other, embarrassed smiles erupting. Yes, we originally met in the States, Elena said. I thought you meant this last time. She cleared her throat. When I came over. Nasir nodded, a satisfied smile on his face. Fuck, he knows. He had to end it now, before they botched another question. Elena, Aubrey, don't let us keep you. Asim gestured toward the hallway visible through the arched doorway. You must be exhausted after the long day. If you'd prefer to rest or get ready for bed, by all means. My brother and I will catch up for just a little bit. Elena nodded, squeezing his arm. Yes, I'm feeling so tired. I should go lie down. She leaned forward, placing a small kiss on his cheek. To Nasir, she said, It was a pleasure meeting you. I'm sure I'll see you again soon. Aubrey let out a small sigh, eyes lingering on Nasir. Yeah, bed, I guess. See you, boys. She stood reluctantly, lagging behind her friend as they exited the dining room. Nasir watched the hallway for a moment before he spoke. What the hell are you doing? Asim creased his brow, reaching again for his wine. What do you mean? This is clearly a farce. Nasir leaned forward, lowering his voice. I've never seen such an obvious lie in my life. Asim scoffed. Please, what does it matter to you? It matters a great deal to me, because you are about to get nailed. Nasir jabbed his finger into the tabletop for emphasis. Nailed. Is that another new American phrase? Listen, once our mother comes home and sits down to properly talk with Elena, the truth will fly out faster than a flock of geese. You won't get this past her. There's nothing to get past her. I've made my decision. Nasir tutted, leaning back into his chair. Asim, you're making a huge mistake. Am I? Asim turned in his chair, looking for a maid. When he spotted her, he signaled for another round of wine. Then he added, Just bring the whole bottle. Turning back to his brother, he said, The only mistake I can see is marrying a woman I do not know or care about. And you care about this one? Asim paused. I do, actually. And it was the truth, even though they'd met less than 24 hours ago. Mother has been working for 3 years to set you up with the Duhad daughter. Her father finally agreed to the marriage just last month. After 3 years of needling and convincing. It would be an insult if you didn't marry her. And it won't be you who shoulders the brunt of that insult. It will be Mother. You cannot do that to her. Asim watched as the maid filled their glasses, leaving a half-empty bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon on the table between them. So, it's more important to preserve Mother's social niceties rather than my own happiness for the rest of my life? Anger burbled hot and raucous inside him, the same way it did whenever he thought too much about the infuriating dynamics of the situation. It might not sound fair, Nasir said, but it's right. She just wants the best for us. And you have to admit that marrying the intelligent, business-minded daughter of a Lebanese family sounds like what's best for us. Why don't you do it? Asim gulped back the rest of his wine. Mother knows she doesn't have to finagle me into a marriage. I'll get there on my own terms. Nasir sent him a stern look. Your constant string of women is no secret. You might as well have a quilt made from all the strange panties left in your bedroom. Asim laughed into his palm. How horrid that would be. You must be rational here, Nasir pleaded. For the good of our family, for the good of our business. You sound like Mother now. Well, she's right in this instance. Besides, you need a woman who can temper you. Elena does temper me, Asim said. She's got a beautiful nature. She's poetic and artistic. The way she views the world is unlike anyone else I've ever met. And how does that translate into managing a business? Nasir narrowed his eyes, sipping at his wine. Don't forget, the Duhat girl is famously accomplished in business. Not only has she launched 2 businesses in the past 3 years, she's also a catty princess who makes the newspapers for her childish outbursts. Asim interjected. I can tell you right now where this match would end up. Nasir shook his head, sucking at his teeth. Fine. Then consider one thing. If you rope Elena into this farce, so be it. But what about when it's over? What then? Asim pushed his wine glass in a pattern on the table, gnawing at his lip. If she's so special and delicate like you say, then I can't imagine she'll want to be dragged along in this charade simply for your benefit. Nasir let out a terse sigh. Always the rational older brother. He'd go to his grave the most practical man he'd ever met. And in a way, he was thankful for it, even when it butted up against his spontaneous plans. You're right. Nasir finished off his glass. I'm going to bed now. I've got terrible jet lag. Will you spend some time with Aubrey tomorrow? Nasir shrugged as he stood. I suppose. What would you like us to do? Whatever the two of you want to do. I just want to have Elena to myself tomorrow. Get to know her a bit better. Steal some more of those scorching kisses. Yes, this once I will. But be careful, please. Nasir squeezed his shoulder on his way out of the dining room. Think about what I've said. Asim's mouth made a tense line as his brother's words ricocheted in his mind. Pushing his own glass aside, he headed for the hallway. Maybe some sleep would do him good. Or maybe he could swing by Elena's room and see if she was still up. Just to say goodnight. One last kiss. And a little bit more. With each step closer to Elena's room, his brother's warnings grew louder, as though he could tell he was on his way to her room. What are you really doing here, Asim? Except, now, he couldn't tell if the thoughts were his own or his brother's admonishments. This isn't fair to her. This isn't right. His fist hovered in front of her door, a half-second away from knocking. Maybe his brother was right. It would be better to at least sleep on it and face the situation fresh in the morning. Let his subconscious determine if he was making a grave mistake or not. Analyze the dreams that cropped up overnight. Asim turned, and headed back to his bedroom. Chapter 7. Elena yawned, stretching out into the plush, luxurious bed for the 100th time that morning. She'd woken up hours ago, technically, but insisted on staying in bed until Aubrey, the maid, or Asim came for her. They'd have to force her out of bed, really. With this thread count and the way the sunlight streamed into the bedroom at just the right angle, like a searchlight from the heavens, there was no way she would willingly get up on her own. A light knock on her door made her roll onto her side, blinking blearily at the door. "Who is it?" The door cracked open. Asim poked his head in. "Good morning." Elena grinned, burrowing into the blankets. "Good morning. Come in." He came into the room holding a small tray with covered dishes on it. He set it down gently on the bed, easing beside it. "Did you sleep well?" "Too well," she said, propping up on an elbow. At the sight of the fine porcelain dishes, her belly grumbled. "This bed is dangerous. It actually has claws to keep me in here." Asim laughed softly, lifting the plate covers. "So, it appears the monster doesn't live under the bed, but rather is the bed." Elena's mouth hung open as she pondered his words, ideas springing to life in her mind. Wouldn't that be a new take on a children's story? Asim grinned. He paused, arranging a vibrant plate of fruit next to toast and small pats of butter. "Where the monster lives, a child's tale. My mother puts me into bed and tucked me in up to my head, but once the comforting light disappeared, a hovering presence slightly neared." Elena perked up. "Wow, you just made that up off the top of your head?" Asim nodded, popping a grape into his mouth. "Not bad for your second language." "English is my third language," he corrected. Elena fought a grin. Why did that make him even sexier? "Excuse me." She bit into a piece of lush muskmelon. "What's your second language?" "French." He chewed thoughtfully. "For business." "Well, color me jealous. I wish I spoke 3 languages." He grinned, his gaze lingering on her, like he knew a secret. "What? Why are you looking at me like that?" "Color you jealous." He bit into a piece of toast. "You're such an artist. Only you would know the shades of jealousy." She laughed. "It's an expression, but maybe you're right. I do know how to paint jealousy, and a whole bunch of other things." They shared a warm smile, one that made her feel like they'd known each other longer than 24 hours. Already, their chance meeting outside the cafe yesterday felt like a lifetime ago. Time seemed to pass differently on the palatial estate. The door creaked open, and in walked Aubrey and Nasir. "Morning, fam!" Aubrey plopped onto the end of the bed. "You're not even out of bed yet? Sheesh." "It's impossible to get out of this bed," Elena protested. "I'm surprised you had the strength to leave yours." "Nasir came and got me up." Aubrey sent a goofy grin his way. Already she could tell Aubrey would be working hard to win him over. Nasir was certainly the clean-cut older brother. He and Asim shared the same strong nose and dark, brooding eyes. But Nasir's expressions were more stern, hair cropped closer, and the way he carried himself felt somehow more Western. Probably from spending all that time in L.A. And Aubrey had been fawning over all the dark-skinned men in this part of the world. Nasir was probably officially her new dream man. "We'll be headed to the market," Nasir said, jingling keys in his pocket. "I think it would be best to go pick out some traditional clothing for the girls, something Mother would appreciate." "Do you want to come with?" Aubrey popped a piece of strawberry into her mouth. Elena glanced at Asim, then back at the fruit plate. "No, I think I'll stay here. I'm not quite ready to leave the cocoon." Aubrey reached out to pinch her arm. "All right, I'll pick you out something real nice. Promise. Nasir and Aubrey waved before heading out, leaving her and Asim in a pleasant quiet. Birds twittered outside, reminding her how lovely a garden walk might be, especially if it ends up the same way as yesterday. Is your brother single? She popped another grape into her mouth. He is, or rather, he's not, because he's married to the business. Why? He stands no chance against Aubrey, then. She grinned. She'll be all over him. Mark my words. I'm sure Nasir won't mind. He has a particular preference for blonde American girls. As Elena reached for a grape, Asim batted her hand away. Let me. He picked up the plump purple fruit, bringing it up to her mouth. She licked it first, then gently held it in her lips. His eyebrows shot up. She sucked at it then, bit it, juice dribbling down her lips. Delicious, she said, laughing. Let's try another one. He grabbed a piece of strawberry and, scooting closer, placed it in his mouth. He leaned, offering it from between his teeth. Mmm. She snagged the juicy fruit between her own teeth, their lips brushing. Heat sizzled through her. Just the mere touch of him provoked that reaction. What might it be like if he were to strip her naked, devour her, kiss every part of her? She might have a total meltdown. It could push her into a fatal ecstasy. Now you have to know what it's like. Elena tore the fruit from his mouth and grinned, chewing. After she'd swallowed, he caught her chin between thumb and forefinger, bringing his lips to hers. A tender kiss emerged, something entirely different than the desperate, lustful make-out session from the day before. When he pulled away, something unknown flashed in his eyes. I'd like to stay all day in your bed and do exactly this, he whispered. But I have a day planned for us, darling. We should get going. The appearance of a pet name scorched through her. One day and a darling already? She'd take it, especially since it had been for her ears only. No one around to convince. Okay, I'll get dressed. And make sure you wear long pants, he said, before slipping out of the room. And sneakers. An hour later, in leggings and a slouchy shirt, Elena stood at the top of a rocky outcrop, a warm wind buffeting her from all sides as they looked over the glittering sprawl of Beirut. Ali, their paraglide instructor and guide, gave her harness a once-over, then moved over to Asim's. With a thumbs up, it was time to launch. Elena drew a deep breath, repeating the carefully explained instructions Ali had laid out for them. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, jump. She launched herself after the running start, strong whips of wind snagging the parachute. Her stomach plummeted, but the parachute soared. A moment later, she was floating effortlessly on the wind. She looked over her shoulder. Behind her, Asim beamed. Pumped his fist in the air, but his smile bordered on a grimace. Heart beating, she scanned the cityscape, still in disbelief that she was all the way up here. This view is incredible. The Mediterranean Sea looked unmoving from so high above. Like a snapshot instead of the real thing. The beach hugging the Beirut coastline was a top swirl, tiny colorful dots lining the periphery, probably umbrellas, or maybe even street vendors. This is fucking incredible! She threw her head back, unsure if her voice would carry. And oh, well, if it didn't, this moment was hers and hers alone. Ali navigated a full air tour, executing fun dips and silly antics along the way. By the time they touched down on the landing spot, on the other side of Beirut, Elena's legs were shaky with exhilaration. She collapsed into Asim's arms, giggling into his chest. That was so thrilling, she said, squeezing her arms around his waist. He placed a kiss on top of her head. I'm glad you liked it, he said. I'm afraid of heights. She laughed. Then why did you set up something like this? I'm trying to get over it, he admitted, a boyish smile cresting his face. Besides, I thought you might like it. Thought the views might inspire you. She held his gaze, letting his words wash over her. It was sweet in a way she wasn't used to, especially from someone she'd known so short a time. How could he appreciate her most secret parts so quickly? She swallowed a knot of emotion and stood up. Well, you were right. I loved it, and they did inspire me. She looked over at Ali, who worked at storing their gear. I can't wait to see the videos we filmed with the headcam. It will be phenomenal, Ali promised. You can relive the experience 1,000,000 more times. About an hour later, she and Asim sat on the back patio of a quaint cafe, surrounded by ferns and palms. Her legs had solidified from gelatin after their paragliding experience, and she was ready for a hearty lunch. I need tabbouleh, she announced, looking at the menu board. She flipped it over, surveying the drink menu. And wine. Your wish is my command. A waiter came over to leave glasses of water, and they placed their order. Once he left, Asim leaned forward, taking her hands in his. I feel so comfortable around you, he said, eyes on her knuckles. I really like that. I feel the same way, Asim. She sighed a little, gaze traveling over his lightly tousled hair, his shadow of stubble. Trust me, I don't normally let guys into my pants so quickly. I definitely feel a certain connection with you. He grinned, his gaze searing through her. Yes, the feeling is mutual. Their glasses of wine arrived, and after a thoughtful sip, Elena said, So did you skip work to take me out today? A bit, yes, he winked. But I made sure my colleagues knew I would be out of the office. We have quite a good working relationship. Do you like your work? He paused, gaze falling to the table. That's a complex question with a complex answer. She grimaced. Oh, I didn't realize. He waved it off. It's a fair question. I suppose you should know things if we have any hope of convincing my mother. He sighed. To be honest, I don't like my job very much, but I'm good at it. I think that's the simplest answer. But it's our family business, so obviously, there was no other career path available to me. Elena creased a brow. Well, what would you have done if you could have chosen otherwise? Asim paused again, his gaze drifting out over the patio wall toward the sea that sparkled in the distance. When I was younger, I wanted to be a poet. A grin overtook her face. I knew it. What? I sensed the artist in you the second we met. She took a triumphant sip of wine. Asim seemed knocked off guard. Really? There was something there, but you sealed the deal this morning with the monster poem. She nodded. I can see it. Asim cleared his throat, straightening, as if he were about to deliver a speech. In a steady baritone, he said, Oh, beloved, take me. Liberate my soul. Fill me with your love and release me from the two worlds. If I set my heart on anything but you, let fire burn me from inside. Oh, beloved, take away what I want. Take away what I do. Take away what I need. Take away everything that takes me from you. Elena lifted a brow. Did you write that? He shook his head. It's a poem by Rumi, one of my favorites. The secret depths of this man were like stumbling across buried treasure. She hadn't imagined they might connect on an artistic level, not with the business-savvy sheik. It's beautiful. I think you should cultivate your gifts. That would never be acceptable in my family, believe me. He shook his head. We're from very different cultures, Elena. There are many expectations surrounding my behavior and choices. Like your future wife? He snorted. Exactly. Great example. Aren't arranged marriages a little old-fashioned? For the most part, it's not the custom anymore. But for certain families, especially when business interests are concerned, it's still practiced. And my family values business over all else. We'd sacrifice a relative if we had to. He grinned. I'm only kidding, of course. Maybe you are the sacrifice. His face fell as he considered her words. Lord, you're right. He shook his head, face darkening. I've never wanted to marry. It just never felt like a good choice for me. And especially now. I can't imagine marrying a woman I've barely met. The mere thought of her sets my teeth on edge. Something inside Elena tightened at his words. The small, barely there hope inside her that their fake engagement might lead to a real something officially died. That whimsical, fairy tale notion that this unexpected encounter might lead to a fulfilling and dreamy future. Not that she wanted to marry him, that was even a little too Disney for her tastes, but that maybe, somehow, they could date. Just see where things went. Like that's even possible. Look at this guy. Sexier than sin. Probably has half of Lebanon carrying his child. The thought was sobering. She straightened, sipping at her wine. Why don't you want to get married at all, though? Asim cleared his throat. Drink the wine that moves you, as a camel moves when it's been untied. What was that? More roomy, just a part of it. A satisfied smile crossed his face, and the meaning of it crashed into her. The guy was a playboy, tasting every damn wine he pleased. Maybe it was more than half of Lebanon. Maybe he had a string of illegitimate heirs all around the globe. I am a man of pleasure. His tone turned sultry, his gaze darkening. I like to try rare and exotic wines, and it is very much a new wine in town that I would love to taste. His words lit her skin on fire. On the one hand, the thought of a playboy was somehow unappealing. How many women had he been with? But on the other hand, he was a playboy for a reason. Smooth moves, smoother looks, and the skills that he'd already proven to be at master level. The man should give classes. It would just be a taste. If this whole thing was a ruse, if it was only for a week, then she should milk it for all it was worth. Starting with the very luxurious wine tastings. Chapter 8. By the time Asim brought Elena to their final destination for the day, lust radiated off of her in powerful waves. It was all he could do to keep his head on straight beneath her sultry gaze. Just make it into the loft, and it's game on. The lush garden swept up a steep incline, strewn with steep staircases winding through heavy foliage, dappled with thick-trunked trees. Tree houses dappled the canopy, each one an intimate lookout over the city. But with the way Elena had been eyeing him since lunch, it could be much more than simply a sightseeing excursion, and he'd be willing to take it there the second she was ready. They climbed a delicate spiral staircase leading up to the dark wood treehouse. Asim had arranged for a bottle of wine to be available upon arrival. It stood, already open, next to 2 wine glasses on a small table by the door. This is spectacular, Elena breathed, easing on to the thickly padded floor. Cushions covered every square inch, topped with silky sheets. Throw pillows dotted the walls of the treehouse, and before them, an immaculate window overlooked the ocean. The sea glittered in the distance, slivers of the city sprawl visible at the side. Elena sighed as she arranged the pillow behind her, making herself comfortable. You sure know how to woo a girl, she commented, narrowing her eyes. First paragliding, then amazing food and wine. She swallowed, meeting his gaze hesitantly. Now this. How do you expect me to keep myself off of you? Her face flushed at the comment, and he knew it had to be the wine or some secret code that he'd unwittingly cracked somewhere between paragliding and now. I don't expect you to, he answered coolly, leaning beside her. He reached for her hand, locking eyes. In fact, if you keep yourself off me, I'll be disappointed. She laughed a little, but the smile fell quickly. She jerked at his hands, urging him closer without explicitly demanding it. He leaned in, capturing her chin between thumb and forefinger, bringing her lips close to his without touching them. Yeah? He smirked, watching the desire crease her face. You want it? She whimpered and nodded, and he dipped down, smashing his lips against hers, coaxing a desperate, hungry kiss from her. She made a small noise and clutched at him, pulling him down on top of her. He clamored to follow her lead, propping himself on either side of her, his hands sinking into the cushions. They kissed until need overcame them. He leaned back to unbutton his shirt, tossing it aside, and then made quick work of his belt buckle. Once he'd unzipped his pants, he pulled away, breathing heavily as he looked down at her. I want to see you. He pulled her slouchy shirt over her head, followed by her tank top, tossing both aside.
Sorry, readers. Here's where we fade to black due to YouTube explicit content guidelines. If you dream for the steam, you'll need to take a look in the book.
He groaned, tilting his head back, her gaze searing through him. Wow, she whispered, dragging her lips feather light over his. He gulped, nodding, unable to look away from her. The weight of her was a welcome pleasure, one that soothed him. With other women, he just wanted to hurry them out the door. Not Elena. Something in her gaze asked him to stay a while, and with her he was happy to sit under her spell for as long as he could. That was intense, he said, squeezing her hips. You should probably just stay right where you are, so we're ready for the next round. She bit her lip, gaze turning sultry. I don't think I'd mind that at all. Chapter 9. Asim leapt out of bed extra early the next day with one goal in mind: spend as much time with Elena as possible. Their romantic reverie from the day before left him craving more, which seemed silly to even think about considering they'd spent nearly the entire day together. How could that much of her make him want even more? It was unsettling, but in a good way. Made him curious to see how much he could learn about her before this all came to an end. The memory of her rattled around behind his eyes, coloring nearly everything he did that morning as he got ready. Every cell craved her company, that sweet heat crashing around him again, the soft scent of her hair, her lilting laugh wafting through the air. He rushed through brushing his teeth and styling his hair, buttoning up his shirt on his way out of the bedroom. Crossing the threshold into the main foyer of the house, the scurrying of maids made him straighten. There wasn't usually so much activity this early in the day, and when his mother was gone, the house staff slouched, like taking a furtive smoke break when the boss wasn't looking. All this commotion could mean only one thing. His mother breezed through the foyer, sunglasses on her face, a flowery dress flowing around her. He froze in his tracks. He hadn't expected her to be arriving so early today. Definitely not before 9 a.m. She must have cut that U.S. trip very short. Sophia raised her glasses to look at him, narrowing her eyes. Good morning, Asim. Where is your fiancée? So she'd cut straight to the chase. He swallowed hard, looking around like he'd left his response misplaced somewhere in the foyer. She... You must take me to her. Mother, I'm sure she's still sleeping. We should help her greet the day, don't you think? A plasticized smile crossed her face, one that made his inside solidify. He was confident around any woman in the world, except for his mother. She was the one lady who could crumble his facade. Well, I... He shoved his hands into his pockets. What a horrid way to start the day, not just for him, but for Elena. He couldn't spring the surprise on her, not like his mother wished it. She's not been feeling well. His mother's nostrils flared. We should make her tea. Chamomile and sage. She clapped her hands sharply, summoning a maid. She directed her to make the tea and bring it immediately. When it's ready, we'll take it to her. Together. Asim forced a smile, but it felt more like a grimace. The woman was relentless. The quality made her an asset to the family business. After their father's death 5 years ago, Sophia had stepped up to the plate in a huge way, not content ceding operation to her sons. The ways in which she remained involved after his father's death told him that she had been pulling far more strings in the background than his parents had ever let on. It was no wonder she was obsessed with him finding a business-minded wife. She wanted him to execute the exact same plan she and his father had followed, which meant she was probably fiercely committed to seeing the Dahoud girl become his wife instead of Elena. Asim summoned a passing servant, tersely instructing him to warn Elena that he'd be showing up at her room soon. He paced the foyer, waiting for his mother to return from freshening up in her bedroom. When she showed up, smiling sardonically with a steaming cup of tea in her hands, the two walked silently to Elena's room. Here goes nothing. Elena cracked open an eyelid, squinting against the sunlight streaming through her window. She'd forgotten to shut the room-darkening curtains again, which meant the brilliant light of day woke her up far earlier than she liked. She groaned, shifting in the bed, soreness evident between her legs. You knew this would happen. After no sex for so long, a free-for-all like their wild treehouse evening was sure to leave her battered and bruised. A grin drifted across her face, and she launched an arm over her eyes to block the sun. Those sexy memories would haunt her, long after this ruse was over, which maybe would prove to be a bad thing down the road. What if you never stop fantasizing about him? To say he was skilled in bed, or rather the treehouse, would be an understatement. His gaze alone was enough to push her over the edge. Hell, she'd gotten off just by locking eyes with him at least once. She still wasn't sure if this whole thing was a mistake or not. But one thing was certain, the sex, at least, was worth it. A soft knock sounded on her door, and she sat up a little, bunching the silky sheets around her naked body. Who is it? A soft voice replied, in uncertain English. Madam, Sheikh Asim is on his way to see you. She lifted a brow. Perfect. So now she could prepare. Thank you. She waited to see if the messenger would add anything. When nothing came, she tossed the covers back, revealing her naked body. Yes, this would be a fine way to greet the day. She flipped onto her stomach, trying out a few sexy postures, resting her head in a hand, twirling her hair, mischievously bending a leg. When the next knock came, she was ready. Darling, it's me. Asim's voice soothed her, made the mischief come to a boil inside her veins. Just his voice could affect her like that. This is dangerous. She flipped onto her back, splaying out like a kinky goddess. This would do. Come in, you sexy man. There was a pause, and then the door creaked open a bit. Asim's voice floated through the opening, still slightly muffled. Darling, my mother has returned from her trip, and she wishes to tend to your poor health. His words crashed together like a head-on collision, and she scrambled to grab the sheets and pull them around herself. His mom is back? She lay back for a moment, then pushed the sheets off again. She needed clothes, at least, in the presence of the matriarch. She couldn't lounge like a lazy concubine in front of that terrifying woman. My poor health? She scrounged for some panties, and then a tank top. "Did you hear me? Or have you fallen asleep from the illness?" Elena coughed loudly, looking over her shoulder. "I'm sorry, Asim, I drifted off. One moment." So now she had to play sick. With so little time to prepare, who knew what he expected of her? What had he already told his mother? She leapt into bed, bunching the sheets and covers around her, making a sick nest. She fluffed the pillows, mussed her hair. "Please come in." The door creaked open again, and Elena feigned grogginess. She turned to look toward the door, opening her eyes to slits. "Is that you?" She reached feebly toward the door, then pulled her hand back. That was too much. She wasn't dying here. This wasn't an Oscar-worthy performance of passing into the afterlife. "Oh, my darling." Asim rushed toward her, sitting gently on the edge of the bed. He stroked her hair back, and then his mother came into view, gaze slicing into her. Elena pushed up a little bit, coughing feebly, avoiding Sophia's gaze. "You'll have to excuse me," she sniffled, smoothing her hair down. "I haven't been feeling well." "So Asim told me. I'm very sorry to hear that." She sat on the edge of the bed as well, offering a steaming cup to her. "I've brought you some tea, chamomile and sage. Drink it. You will feel better." "Oh, thank you." She mustered a smile, taking the hot cup between her hands. "This air does not always treat foreigners very well," Sophia said, but she couldn't tell if that was a criticism somehow. "Are you calling me weak?" "Asim, you should go check on your other guest. I'll help Elena with her tea." Fear sliced through her as Asim stood. "Don't leave me alone in here." Asim made a face that said, "I'm sorry," before he left the room, leaving them in a tense silence. "Now that we have some alone time," Sophia said, her voice hard as the edge of a diamond, "I want to know you better. If you're supposedly marrying my son, I must know as much as I can." Elena nodded, taking a hesitant sip of the bitter tea. Maybe it was laced with poison, and this was the end. His mother had won. "Of course. Where are you from?" "California." "There's so much scandal and drama in Los Angeles," Sophia said, eyes narrowing. "You're not from L.A., are you?" God help me if I were. "No, I'm from the northern part." "Good," Sophia sniffed, adjusting her position. "What do you do?" "I just graduated from college," she said, sipping again at the tea. "I majored in art. I'm a painter." "Do you find it difficult to make a living? Or are you hoping to simply live off my son?" Elena nearly choked on the tea. "No, ma'am. I I don't want to simply live off him. I plan to start my own business and an art gallery in a few years. I work on commission for now, and have for a couple years. The money isn't great, but it's growing. I have full confidence this will be my career." Her eyes narrowed further. "And what do your parents say about this?" Elena's voice shriveled. "They always supported my dreams. They would be proud of me, I think." Sophia softened visibly. "Have they been gone long?" "They both passed several years ago." She nibbled at her bottom lip. "I miss them every day." Sophia shifted. "I'm sure they'd be happy to know you've met someone like Asim. He is the pride that every mother hopes for. I will see that only the best comes to him." Again, her words were like a ruler against the knuckles. She took another sip of tea, wondering where this conversation would end up. This clearly wasn't a soft-hearted, let's meet my new daughter-in-law bedside conversation. This was an interview. How long have you known him? The question squeezed at her gut. Panic flashed through her. She feigned coughing into her hand. Well, it hasn't been long. Sophia's eyes darkened. In the grand scope of our lifetimes, the amount of time we've spent together feels like only a few days. Sophia smoothed a few wrinkles from the comforter, her lips a thin line. You seem to have the same poetic inclinations as my son. It's one of the reasons we work so well together, Elena said, the words flying out before she could think better of it. And the strange part was she meant them. I should leave you to get better. Drink all of that tea. Sophia patted her leg through the blanket and stood, gliding out of the room without another word. Elena sat paralyzed in her wake, staring into space, replaying the conversation in her head to figure out if she'd passed the test or not. Asim arrived moments later, eyes wild. How did that go? I have no idea. Elena slurped back the rest of her tea and set the cup down on the nightstand. That was terrifying, and to think I almost greeted her totally nude with my legs spread. Asim drew back, an eyebrow arching. A grin ghosted his face. That's what you were planning for me? Well, yeah, she huffed, burying her face in her hands. Asim sighed, easing onto the bed. He rubbed her back. I'm sure you did fine. I wasn't expecting her to appear so early. I thought we'd be able to spend the day together and prepare a little bit. But he shook his head. Thank you for your performance. I'll be able to feel out her reaction a bit later. Something about the word performance niggled at her, sent strange, unwelcome spirals through her body. That hadn't been a performance. She'd meant everything she said. Why later? She's going to change and get ready for the day. She literally came straight from the airport to your room. She hasn't even had breakfast yet. Elena tutted. She was hell-bent. How long do we have to keep this up? Asim's gaze flitted away. Until she withdraws the marriage offer to the other family. I'll let you know after I speak with her. He paused, snagging her gaze. But I promise you'll be compensated for all your help. Elena frowned, looking away. Compensated? So does this mean you've become a hooker? Lovely. Doubt crossed her face. He reached for her hand. I don't want this to be painful for you. Let's just have as much fun as we can while you're here. We might as well enjoy our time together, right? His smile disarmed her, made the bitter taste of his insinuation dissolve entirely. He pushed back the sheets, revealing her legs. Goosebumps prickled on her skin as he dragged his fingertips over her shin up to her knee, over the warm flesh of her thigh. She swallowed hard, daring herself to meet his gaze. What did she even want from him? Things were too murky to tell. The long-term picture was a foggy bay at sunrise, no clear end in sight, 1 foot blending into 1 mile. Because what were the chances he felt the same prickly sensations of attraction and longing sprouting inside him? The same familiarity, the same urgent tides of deep-seated connection washing over him? This would only ever be pure business for him, no matter how good the sex was. So if she only served as his cover story, then there shouldn't be any problem just having fun with him. No strings attached. No matter how much her heart throbbed at the thought of something more with this man. Chapter 10. Days blurred into a week. 2 weeks catapulted into 3. After so much time with the girls under the palace roof, Asim felt like maybe they'd always lived this way. Elena, Aubrey, Nasir, and himself, an eclectic mix of friends, family, and lovers, sharing dinners and laughter, sunshine and sunsets. Nasir traveled back and forth between Lebanon and the States almost weekly, as he was in the middle of helping their younger brother, Basiri, navigate a structural overhaul in the Middle Eastern office. Asim helped where he could, but preferred to maintain his regular work schedule. That way, he could spend every free moment with Elena and, sometimes, Aubrey. The girls seemed happy enough relaxing into luxury, but he made sure to keep them occupied too. By the third week, they'd done almost every touristic thing in the city, including some little-known archaeological sites in other parts of the country. He dangled those things in front of them like a carrot in front of a horse, praying that the continued distractions would buy him more time for his mother to dissolve the wedding agreement. But by the third week, his mother had officially orchestrated a stalemate. She'd perfected the art of evasion when it came to conversation about the Dahoud family. No matter how much Asim gently insisted she quit wasting the family's time with her offer, she found a way to dodge him. "You know, our backpacking trip is technically ending soon," Elena said one day as they strolled through the gardens. They made sure to keep the touching and kissing to a strict minimum inside the palace, under the watchful gaze of his mother and her staff. Traditionally, sex was forbidden until marriage, and he didn't want his mother to come at him claiming a breach of purity as a last-ditch effort to break them up. In the gardens, though, they could get away with more, all the way up to and including furtive fondling, like their very first time. "I know. It's hard to believe you've been here 3 weeks already." He smiled wistfully, scanning the lush grass of the estate. It would be hard to imagine life without her so near, always within reach. "My mother hasn't dissolved the offer yet. I think she doesn't want me to marry you." "Well, you don't want to marry me either," Elena pointed out. He furrowed his brow. Why would you say that? Something in her words felt as though she'd brandished a knife. "You don't want to marry anyone, remember?" "Well, yes." Asim straightened the cuffs of his shirt. After work, he'd come straight to find Elena. Most days, he didn't make a single plan until he heard from her and got her input. And by this point, he realized he'd stopped making plans without her. Not because he was scared to not include her, but because he simply preferred her to be around. "And your point?" She shrugged, looking away. They strolled in tense silence for a few moments, while Asim thought of a way to crack the strange mood she wore like a shield. "Listen, I want to take you somewhere. I thought of a trip we could all take. You, me, Aubrey, and Nasir." "Where to?" "It's a resort, a place my family used to take my brothers and me when we were little. We absolutely loved it, but my mother always hated it. She never came with us. I'll let her know we're planning to go and she'll decline to come along." He paused, searching her face for her understanding. She remained stony, so he added, "So it will just be the 4 of us." She nodded. "And then what?" "Well, we can do whatever we'd like." He laughed a little. "No more sneaking around like teenagers, scared my mother will find us." When she didn't respond, he nudged her. "Don't you think that will be fun?" Her gaze swung toward him, brimming with fire. "Fun? Sounds like more charades, if you ask me." Her words weren't nearly as caustic as her tone. "Charades? What are you—" "I'm tired of you using me like I'm some stupid piece in a game," she snapped, crossing her arms, stilling on the pathway. "It's been 3 weeks and your plan didn't work like you wanted, so what? We're just gonna keep acting like we're together until she signs something?" "I promise it'll be any day—" "If you don't want to marry the other girl, just get out of it yourself. Refuse to sign papers or skip your own wedding. Whatever, just get out of it. But don't drag me along anymore. I don't want to go to your stupid resort." Asim blinked, mouth hanging open as he struggled to find an appropriate response. His first reaction was understanding. God, she was right. Totally right. Even though the same words from almost anyone else would have incited his fury. Well, what do you want then? He reached out for her, but she turned away, gnawing at the inside of her lip. I don't know, she said in a small voice. I just want to be alone. Elena turned and jogged back toward the house, the golden evening sun bathing her in light. He watched her go, stunned by the outburst, shocked that she'd been filling up with so much emotion right under his nose. That certainly wasn't the Elena he'd come to know, but if he was honest with himself, he'd felt the tension brewing for a few days, felt the ways in which she was getting restless and strained. The vacation is over. It's time to figure this out once and for all. Elena jogged back to her room, fighting tears the whole way. It was all she could do to hold up that angry veneer alongside his confident swagger, because she didn't want to admit to the pain inside. The embarrassment of going along with a ruse like this for so long, because somewhere along the line it became real. The ruse became reality, but it was clear she was the only one who'd fallen for it. And wasn't that a sad truth? Between Asim, Safia, and herself, Elena was the only one who believed the lie she'd helped create. She pushed her bedroom door shut and locked it, leaning against the thick wood. Chest heaving, she pressed a hand to her forehead, unsure where the intensity of that emotional outburst had stemmed from. Had she fallen so hard for him? Undoubtedly she'd fallen, but she liked to maintain the slight hope that she was still rational about it. Like maybe she wasn't turning into a lovesick ninny who'd fall all over herself just for a chance to be near Asim. Tears welled in her eyes, and she sighed with frustration. Seriously, what's wrong with you? She wiped at her eyes and went to the small balcony overlooking a side garden. She gripped the thick stone railing, scanning the greenery without really seeing it. This isn't like you to be so emotional over a guy. But she also hadn't fallen for someone in a long time, and she'd never known anyone like Asim. This was new territory altogether. He had no precedent. Maybe your period is about to start. Light bulbs flashed in her head, and she groaned. That had to be it. She hadn't had her monthly visit since before Lebanon, or maybe longer. Panic seized her as she struggled to recall the last time Lady Flo had visited. She'd needed to buy tampons, which led to an awkward pharmacy visit in Arabic, so maybe it had been in Jordan. She scrambled for her phone, pulling up the calendar, trying to pinpoint when they'd visited Petra. She counted the days between Petra and the current day, and then she counted again, and then one more time to be sure. If her memory served her correctly, she was 1 week late. She blinked, letting the phone slip out of her hands and tumble to the floor. 1 week late. She was never late. Not during traveling, not when she was stressed, not ever. Her menstrual regularity was practically a renowned gift. Other women synced to her fierce timetable. And she was late. Curiosity and panic burbled hot inside her belly. Could it be? Touching her belly, she already knew. There was no other explanation, and they'd had unprotected sex enough times that it was almost certain. And if part of her hadn't cared then, well then, this was the natural consequence. But she wouldn't take a test here, not with so many maids and staff around, all of them probably reporting back to Safia. She had to wait until she was back on the road, or on her way home, which meant that her exit from the palace needed to happen immediately. The thought of leaving Asim made her heart hurt, but at this point, there was no point in sticking around. He only wanted no strings-attached sex and a convenient excuse to flout his mother's wishes. Not only did she have the biggest potential strings-attached situation growing inside her belly, the thing she really wanted most, Asim to choose her, to truly want to be with her, was never going to happen. Forcing him to take her against his wishes would be worse than not having him at all. Even if she swore she saw the flame of their connection growing brighter every day, Asim would be sure to snuff it. He doesn't want anything serious, so he'll never choose you. It was time to get the hell out of there. Asim stormed through the palace, picking up his wallet, which he'd left in the foyer after work, and snatching a car key from a row of hooks. Aubrey's eyebrows shot up when she noticed him. Going somewhere? Maybe. He tucked a hand through his hair, avoiding her gaze. Why? You look like you're on a mission. She shrugged. Can I come with you? All he wanted was a quick joyride in the car to blow off steam, to blast through the countryside and forget that he was losing Elena. Aubrey being there might not let him shake off all the frustration. I don't know. I'm going for a drive. Well, I'm sure there's room for both of us. She grinned. When he didn't respond immediately, she added, You look upset. There's clearly something you need to talk about. Let's hit the road. He sighed. Fine. He headed out the front door, walking quickly toward the sprawling 8-car garage. He pressed a button on the keyring, and one of the garage doors slid open, revealing a bright red sports car. Aubrey gasped. Wow, I didn't realize you had this battalion of awesomeness tucked away. She ran her fingertips over the side of the car as she walked to the passenger side. Hey, don't touch unless you want to wax. He fixed her with a look before getting into the car. She slid into the other side of the two-seater, whistling low. Dang, can I touch the inside at least? Very gently. He started the car, and it roared to life. He revved it a few times, feeling a tiny bit of his anxiety melt away. Horsepower was just the cure for certain things. He backed out of the garage, then shifted into gear. He tore down the driveway, making the tires squeal. Aubrey hooted with laughter as they flew along the main driveway. When the chauffeur drove, it took several minutes to make it down the long entryway. In his car, it took 30 seconds. He slowed to a stop at the gated entrance, waiting for the attendant to open up. Aubrey looked over at him, amusement on her face. You've got a lot of steam to blow off, it looks like. Yeah, I do. The gate opened, and he shifted, peeling out of the property. He headed for the highway, slowing a little as he maneuvered around potholes. You want to talk about it? Asim ground his jaw as he thought. Yes, he did want to talk about it. But what he really needed to know, he was too scared to ask. He glanced over at Aubrey, practicing the words in his head. I don't know. Aubrey looked out the window as he drove. As silence consumed the car, he worked up the nerve to say the words. Otherwise, the not knowing might eat him alive. What does Elena think of me? A small smile crossed her face. That's what's got you so worked up? He shrugged. I just need to know what she thinks of me. She sighed, crossing her arms over her chest. Well, I know she likes you. A lot. Too much for my taste. She shot him a look. But she thinks you're handsome, smart, passionate. She told me you're a secret creative, which I still sort of don't believe, and also that you're full of yourself. His eyebrows crashed together. That last one stung. Really? Hey, you asked. He shifted gear as he slowed for the on-ramp. I guess it makes sense she'd think that. I've completely ruined your trip, haven't I? Of course she'd think he was full of himself. He'd done the most selfish thing, forced the two of them to forego their trip just to pander to his whims. Guilt crashed through him. He'd been so focused on the prize of his mother bending to his will that he'd forgotten entirely that part of their goal was other countries, not just archaeological sites in Lebanon. Elena is a woman who likes to stick to the plan, and when those plans get held up, she gets very anxious. Aubrey paused, glancing over at him. I know it seems like a person with an art degree might not be so serious, but she is. Besides, she hasn't been able to express herself like she normally does for almost 2 months. Painting is her life. She's dying to get home and get back to work. Her words wandered around inside him like someone groping through a dark cave. How can I get her to stay longer? Please let her stay longer. Every throb of his heart reflected this wish. If she left now, he didn't know what he'd do. And the scary part was, most of the desperation had nothing to do with waiting out the dissolution of the engagement. He just wanted her near him, all the time. And those feelings didn't fit in at all with the original scheme. Aubrey hefted with a laugh as he merged onto the highway traffic. Honestly, I don't think you can. Girl's ready to go. Her words settled inside him like boulders. He'd used up all his time, and not only had he managed to screw up the plan, he'd also entirely frustrated Elena in the process. And knowing that hurt him somehow. At the very least, he'd only wanted to show the girls a good time. Let them bask in the finer things for a while. And he couldn't even achieve that. I've made sure that you two have had everything while you've been here, he said, speeding up, maneuvering through a few lanes of cars. Hasn't that helped? Asim, you've been nothing but stellar. Believe me, you've shown us parts of your country we never would have known. We've gotten to know your amazing family, live in your incredible home. These have been the most incredible 3 weeks of my life. But it's time for her to go. Asim braked hard, crossing a few lanes to make an exit ramp that he hadn't planned on approaching so quickly. Aubrey gripped the armrest and breathed with relief once they were stopped at a traffic light. Where are we going now? To blow off more steam, he said, squeezing the steering wheel. Gambling. Chapter 11. Urgent knocks sounded on her door. Before she could even turn to look, Asim's voice rang out. Elena, open the door. Geez, okay. Give me a second. She crossed the room, tugged the door open, already annoyed. His face creased. Asim hesitated before speaking. I have a surprise for you. She blinked a few times, sideswiped by this unexpected arrival. I probably have a bigger surprise for you. Am I late for dinner? No, just follow me. He jerked his head toward the hallway, and she followed, shutting the door quietly behind her. His energy was so strange and hurried. She hadn't expected this after their terse conversation in the garden hours earlier. He led her out of the house and toward the gardens where they'd been strolling earlier that day. He grabbed her hand, hurrying her along. She jogged behind him, distracted by the rich crimson of the setting sun. The whole sky was awash in vibrant golds and ochre. Her heart squeezed at the thought of painting it, of capturing it on canvas. Her fingers twitched, wishing she had a paintbrush in them, a palette of oils, unlimited time stretching before her to create. It's up here. Asim had led her to a new corner of the estate gardens. A stone building spiraled upward, a turret connected to the stone wall lining the property, as if it was a secret lookout spot on the goings-on. A tiny doorway led to a rickety stairway, winding up to a loft space overlooking the property. It smelled old in here, like maybe it was one of the first constructions on the estate. The wood boards groaned when they walked on them, and he led her to a narrow door in the corner. This is one of the original rooms, he said, looking around as though it were his first time here, too. My grandmother built it when she started renovating the estate. It was a way for her to oversee the progress as they built more and more. He shoved his hands in his pockets, contemplating the far wall. But there's something else in here I want you to see. Asim opened the door, gesturing inside. Canvases lined the floor of a large closet, A folded easel leaned against the back wall. A couple shelves held shoeboxes full of stuff. A few tubes of paint poked out over the tops. It was a secret art shop on the estate. She covered her mouth with a hand, stepping closer slowly, as if advancing too quickly would make it all disappear. How long has this? She swallowed hard, yanking her gaze toward him. Has this been here all along? My brother reminded me about them, he said quietly. It's come to my attention recently that I have overlooked one of the most important parts of your life. Her heart swelled at the admission. His wanting to share this with her, only for her, made her tumble headfirst down the path she was desperately trying to avoid. But it couldn't be avoided, only momentarily ignored. Asim, I love you. Immediately, her mind worked overtime to counteract the sentiment, to find some way to rationalize the feelings. You can't love him. You've known him less than a month. This is all a ruse. Just get over it. But rationalizing it didn't help. The knowledge pulsed deep and quiet inside her. I know you're unhappy here, he said quietly, avoiding her gaze. He jangled some coins in his pockets as he paused. My mother should be dissolving the engagement offer soon, and in the meantime, I want you to be happy. I thought I'd been doing enough. I want you to find your joy here, and then, when you go, you'll be able to take part of this world with you in your travels. Tears stung her eyes, and she tried to swallow the emotion before it showed on her face. She stared at the canvases, scared to look at him. It wasn't right. This whole setup wasn't right. She drew a shaky breath, blinking back some of the tears. Well, I didn't expect this. But really, she should have. Because at the end of the day, none of this was about her. It was about his self-serving mission. Get out of the engagement. Convince Mom this is real. Wash his hands of her, and both would be on their way. She was the sap who'd fallen for him. She was the silly girl who'd made the mistake of thinking the affection might be mutual. I want you to be happy while you're here. Asim said it more forcefully this time, like maybe repeating it would jar something loose inside her. Does this make it better for you? She looked up at him, feeling empty and strange, like her soul had been sucked out. What did she expect from him at this point? He'd never want her the way she wanted him. I appreciate this so much. The words rang hollow, but maybe he wouldn't notice. He leaned in to kiss her, but she stepped away, turning her face. I'd like to be alone for a little bit. I might try to paint something. Confusion streaked his face, and he squeezed her hands. Will you come down for dinner? Yeah, I'll be there. She turned away, reaching for a canvas. The painting material was a nice gesture. She couldn't fault him for that. It was thoughtful and sweet. But it wasn't what she wanted from him. Okay. She could feel the questions in the air between them, his confusion about this sudden tension. But she couldn't talk to him about it. Not now. Maybe not ever. The truth was plain, and maybe it didn't even require a conversation. I'll see you there. He stepped softly down the staircase. She watched as he walked away down the garden path, eventually disappearing into a grove of trees as he headed for the mansion. Once she was sure he was gone, she let her hand drift to her belly. If she was truly pregnant, signs might begin to emerge soon. Morning sickness, or maybe even showing, if Asim convinced her to stay even longer. And then things would get really sticky. If any of them suspected she was pregnant, then surely Asim would only bring shame to his family, based on what he'd told her about their traditions and customs. Besides, if he found out, what would he say? It might break her heart even more to learn that not only did he not want to be with her, he also doesn't want their child. Or maybe he'd suggest keeping it, but paying her off, acting as though he didn't have a child while they maintained their separate existences on opposite sides of the world. Just thinking about either of those reactions was devastating enough. And if she'd learned anything about Asim in these few weeks, it was that he wasn't ready for any amount of responsibility in the family or relationship department. So why bother telling him? Just get out of here and move on. If she wanted to protect what few shreds remained of her heart, she'd have to act fast. Chapter 12. The next morning, Asim went straight to Elena's room before he'd even changed into his regular clothes. Hair mussed and circles under his eyes, he knocked softly on her door. Their dinner the night before had been quick and stilted. She and Aubrey retired to their rooms before he could probe much, and he'd spent most of the night tossing and turning, plagued by a knot in his gut that he couldn't ignore or untangle. He knocked again. She was usually up by 9, so maybe his 8:30 arrival meant she'd need a few extra moments to rouse. He paused and then knocked a third time, louder. No answer. He turned the doorknob. Unlocked. He pushed the door open a crack and peered inside. The bed was made, unused. He pushed the door open all the way and stepped in tentatively. Elena? No answer. He checked the bathroom. All quiet, nobody there. No smiling Elena to greet him as she had so many mornings, putting on mascara or brushing her teeth. His chest tightened, and he hurried out, heading for Aubrey's room. Maybe they're in there. Maybe they're getting ready for the day together. But she never made an early visit to Aubrey's. The truth spread through him, sinister and swift. He knocked on Aubrey's door, already knowing the result. No answer. He pushed open the door, glancing around inside. Eerily quiet and well-kept, like that vocal guest had been merely a fantasy. He pulled the door shut, heart pounding as he considered his next step. A member of the staff passed by, and Asim called to him. "Have you seen the girls?" His voice came out rushed, jagged. "I can't find them." "Sir," the young man responded, "I'm sorry, but the ladies left late last night. Your mother organized it. I assumed she told you." The world around him grew quiet as he struggled to process the information. Your mother organized it. Asim thanked him and ran to the family wing, banging on his mother's door before he could think better of it. She pulled open the door, greeting him with a smile. "Asim, this is early for you." She pushed an earring through a lobe, heading to her vanity. "What have you done with Elena and Aubrey? You can't just send my fiancée away. It's my choice who I marry." His mother settled into the plush seat in front of her vanity, meeting his gaze through the mirror. After a swollen silence, she reached into a tiny drawer in a jewelry box, revealing the engagement ring he'd given to Elena. She set it on the gleaming surface of the vanity. "You're right. It is your choice who you marry." She adjusted both earrings and then turned to face him, her face neutral. "But you did not choose to marry Elena." He furrowed a brow, stepping closer. "What are you talking about? I chose her. We were to be married." "No, my son, you did not," Safia tutted, crossing her legs. "She came to me last night and told me the whole story. She asked for my help getting back to the United States, which I gave her, obviously." Asim grimaced, her words leaving a painful trail as they circled through his body. This wasn't just unfortunate. This was embarrassing. And the more her words settled, the more it seemed as if he'd been holding her against her will, as if he'd kept her a captive of their growing attraction. How could she do that? He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the bedroom as the thoughts collided, bulky and unforgiving. So many things vied for his attention, he didn't know where to start. "I thought we'd grown close. I thought we had something." he stilled, a more painful truth emerging, one that stole his breath. She didn't even say goodbye to me. You're a fool, his mother said curtly, turning back to the mirror. What did you have? A loose agreement to lie to your mother? That's nothing. You had nothing. Besides, no woman wants to be a concubine, a paid escort. What did you think would happen? He balled his fists, the truth of her words sinking to his gut like a sick, dense knot. Tell me where she went. I don't know. His mother leaned forward to apply mascara in the round vanity mirror, her eyes garishly huge in the reflection. I gave them cash, enough to make up for all the time they wasted here trying to appease you. Instead of living their own lives, they were forced to be supporting actors in your silly drama. She tutted, pausing as she finished touching up the mascara. If you had not been so concerned with yourself, you might have seen that your match was right in front of you the whole time. Asim's mouth fell open. What are you saying? I thought you didn't want me to marry her. You've been watching our every movement, quizzing her every chance you got. This makes no sense, Mother. Safia sighed. You're so much like your father, completely oblivious to the wiles of women. Have I not taught you anything? She glanced sharply in the mirror. I suppose not well enough, and maybe that part is my fault. But it was obvious you two had only just met. I wanted to see if you'd stumble. You can hardly blame me. She grabbed a tube of lipstick, twisting it out. Since I knew this was a trick, of course I didn't dissolve the original agreement. But as time went on, I wondered if you would realize what sort of woman you'd gotten your hands on. Asim laughed bitterly. Now you're really not making any sense. No? She lifted a perfectly shaped brow. You're telling me that you would have wanted me to marry Elena? After the past 3 weeks of intolerable scrutiny and disapproval from you? He scoffed. Safia set the tube of lipstick down, turning to face him. Son, what I want is for you to marry well, to a woman who matches you in some way. Whether it's your heart or business, either is fine. My pick with the Dawood family was a business match. She's someone who will help manage our business and your life. But you unwittingly found someone to match your heart. You just never quite realized it. Asim rubbed his face with his hands, sinking onto the edge of his mother's bed. After a moment, he flopped backward, staring at the gilded ceiling. God, you're right. Safia returned to the vanity mirror, tracing the deep red lipstick over her lips. I know. Asim lay there, studying the ceiling, letting the thought crash over him as he sifted through the chaotic mess inside his head. He lay there until his mother got up and rummaged through her closet, lay there while she hummed and tried on a few different pairs of shoes. Finally, he sat up, blinking with clarity. She smiled down at him, looking pleased with herself. Mother, I need the ring. Oh? She glided to the vanity, picking up the token of his foolishness. What are you planning to do? I'm going to find Elena, he said, the words reverberating through him. I want you to dissolve the marriage offer with the Dawood family, because once I find Elena, I'm going to marry her. His mother turned to him, eyes shining, and handed him the ring. Chapter 13. Elena shoved the key into the front door of her house, relieved by the familiar scent that greeted her, some combination of dryer sheets and childhood security. She sighed heavily as she stepped into the dark house, unnerved by the silence there. This was the longest she'd been away from her home in her entire life. Coming back to the dark, uninhabited house after almost 2.5 months somehow amplified her loneliness, like she'd really come back to nothing. She set her luggage by the staircase at the front door and wandered through the house, flipping on lights, trying to make it feel full, lived in, like she'd never left. Pictures of her parents smiled down at her, family portraits dotting hallways, embarrassing school photos she'd never bothered to take down after her parents' passing. In the kitchen, she rummaged through her purse to find the small plastic bag she'd stashed there, the pregnancy test she'd spent way too much money on in an airport in Germany. As if the excessive amount of euros weren't bad enough, she already knew what it would say, but she needed the confirmation, just to erase any doubt that this all still might be some apocalyptic premenstrual mood swing. She headed for the bathroom, then paused, checking the wall clock. 5 p.m. Wasn't she supposed to take these first thing in the morning? But hell, what was 5 p.m. Pacific time anyway? After so much travel and screwy time zone hopping, she had no idea what cycle her body was on. And besides, she couldn't wait any longer. She sat on the toilet and lined the stick up, relaxing enough to pee and aim. After a shaky start, she nailed the test strip. She set it aside and finished up, eyes never leaving the tiny result window, hands shaking as she pulled up her pants. Within seconds, the test screen showed a plus sign. She gulped, and then laughed, and then started to cry. Later that evening, Aubrey stopped by with Mexican food, Chinese takeout, and 2 whole tubs of ice cream. "I wasn't sure what you'd want," Aubrey explained, setting down several glorious-smelling bags. "I just know we need to comfort eat." She paused. "For 3. Elena laughed, hand drifting to her stomach. There was truly a seed germinating in there, and it was more thrilling than she could have imagined, even though it happened totally opposite from how she'd planned it. "Well, let's do it. I'm whooped after all this travel, so I want to eat and then pass out on the couch." "Sounds like a plan, sister." Aubrey brought out the various boxes of food, and they got to work piling it on their plates, which they both took out into the living room for some Netflix. When Elena scanned the selections, Aubrey chewed thoughtfully on a piece of broccoli. "Don't you think you should tell Asim?" Elena glanced over at her, unamused. "I'm not going to. It'll just be a disappointment. That man doesn't want anything besides pussy and—" She struggled to find the word. "An amusement. Telling him he has a bun in the oven won't endear him to me. He'll probably just send me to live in the harem, where he keeps all the other women he's knocked up." "Ouch!" Aubrey laughed. "I've never heard you so bitter before." "I'm not bitter," she said, abandoning the Netflix hunt for a good movie. "I'm just being realistic." Aubrey shrugged. "He seems like he'd step up to the plate, is all I'm saying." "Well, I don't think he'll step all the way up. Not that I'd want him to. He's a nice man, yes, but he doesn't want a family. He doesn't even want to be with me." Emotion swelled and she paused, letting it subside. "I won't tell him until someday down the road. Maybe then he'll be ready for a family. The last thing I want to do is start a family with someone by accident, and then trap him into the obligation. I won't do it like that. Not when he doesn't want it in the first place." "Maybe he should have wrapped it up then," Aubrey pointed out, lifting a brow. Elena grinned, tossing a pillow at her. "Thanks for that. I'm here to keep it real." "Well, I think I'm keeping it pretty real too. I might tell him once the baby is born, but not now. I already know what the outcome would be, and honestly, it would hurt too much." Aubrey frowned. "You know, you don't have to raise this baby alone. I'm going to be here to help you. Hell, I can be the second mom if you want." Elena smirked, scrolling through the action-adventure section. Still no good options. Why did it take a year and a day to find something good? "Oh, come on." "No, I'm serious." Aubrey set her plate of food on her lap, leaning forward with serious eyes. "Look at me. I'm here for you, girl. We can even get married if you want." Elena snorted. "Oh yeah? You'd turn for me?" "I mean, you'd have to be okay with me having a guy on the side. I'd be okay if you have a guy on the side." But would you be okay if Nasir was my side dude? He'd be my first pick. You think you'll ever see him again? You're probably right. Who knows where his LA house is? As long as we're faithful to our sacred womanhood vows, that's all I want. That sounds a lot like what we already have going on, Elena said, laughing. Yeah, I couldn't go full lesbian, Aubrey said, stabbing some chopsticks into the Chinese box. We'll have our own rooms. The kid will just think it's normal. We'll have to reveal to him when he's 18 that Mommy and Mommy have never even kissed. Elena laughed, the remote slipping from her hand. What a confused child we'd have. They finally settled on a rom-com, one that made her laugh and cry in equal measure. Once Aubrey retired to the guest room to sleep, Elena made her way to her own bedroom, heart heavy with longing. How can you miss him already? Each passing hour made her regret a little bit more how she'd slipped away without any word, without even saying goodbye. Even just snagging one more kiss would have been nice. Settling into bed, pulling her cold, familiar covers over her body, she curled into a ball, wishing his weight and heat were behind her. A hand drifted to her belly, as she was sure it would many times in the coming months. Oh, little one, what will I tell you someday about your father? She could make up a story about his death, leave it vague and sad, but full of distant heroism. Or maybe she'd tell her future child the truth, however sordid, that their father fake proposed to her on a whim, to further his own agenda, and then Elena slunk away to her homeland, scarred and heartbroken. But that didn't seem quite right either. Maybe all she'd say was simply that she'd met their father in a faraway land, and that she'd loved him very, very much. That, at least, contained part of the truth. Chapter 14. 1 month later. Asim flipped through the folder the investigator had brought to his office. Half of the pages contained various Elenas scattered throughout California, and the other half Aubrey's. Without any last names to go on, the results were overwhelming and incredibly disheartening. The first 10 pages alone were all duds. Elderly women, small girls, college students who studied business. None of them were his Elena. To be honest, sir, the investigator began, adjusting his tie, I'm thinking that most of these are dead ends. There are several thousand more entries that weren't included in this batch, and without any additional information to go on, we just can't be sure that she's really included here. Asim sighed, shutting the heavy folder, his gaze skating over the dark-haired man before him. Can't you work harder at this? Hire more people? I'll spend whatever amount of money it takes. I need more concrete information, he insisted. A last name, at least. A maiden name. Whatever you have. She's between the ages of 21 and 25. She had just graduated from... He searched his brain for the name, but nothing came up. Fuck. I don't know where. She's a painter. I don't know if her degree was in art or painting or whatever, but it was related. I'm positive of that. And she's from Northern California, not L.A. The investigator grimaced. While good details, they are unfortunately not very helpful in the initial search process. You see, I don't care, Asim snapped, shoving the folder toward him over the smooth mahogany surface of his desk. Evening sun streamed through the wall of windows at the far end of the office. Beyond, the sea glimmered like a mirage, like the hope he refused to relinquish. I'll pay you to look for her for the next 5 years if that's what it takes. The last month alone had been impossible without her. He hadn't realized just how deep she'd burrowed inside him in 3 weeks' time. And now, a month out, he was aching for her, desperate to lay eyes on her, smell the scent of her hair, brush his lips to hers. Most nights he dreamed of her, and some nights he couldn't sleep for wondering. His own anxiety and persistence shocked even him, but it was the only thing that felt right. Very well, the investigator responded, collecting his folder. He stood and bowed slightly. I'll update you as soon as I have more information. Asim scowled once the door shut behind him, turning back to his computer. It couldn't be this hard to find her. Not in this day and age. Not with all the technology available to the world. A few moments later, his office door swung open, and he sighed without turning to face the newcomers. What? Brother! Nasir's smooth voice made him jerk. Asim straightened, swiveling to face the door. Both Nasir and their younger brother, Basiri, stood in front of his desk. To what do I owe such an honor? He gestured toward the open seats in front of his desk, and his two brothers sat, adjusting their suitcoats. Informal family meeting, Basiri said, his dark eyes skating over Asim. He tensed. Whenever Basari mentioned meetings, it meant something bad was coming. Basari was the infamously reckless and short-tempered brother of the family. His serious tone made Asim want to respond with knives out. It's about the business, Nasir said, clearing his throat. It's come to our attention that your VP thinks you've been a little preoccupied lately. We told him we'd talk to you directly. Annoyance surged. Preoccupied was an understatement, but he didn't like being called on it, especially by his brothers. So, I've been dealing with a lot, but my work hasn't suffered. Nasir leaned forward, steepling his fingers. Brother, it's time to give up this search. Asim scowled. What are you talking about? I'm never giving it up. Not until I find her. Basiri smirked. Asim, if you haven't found her by now, you're not going to. You're just wasting resources at this point. Asim scoffed. Oh, please. What do you care about resources? He narrowed his eyes at Basiri. You never even met her. You don't even understand what you're talking about. Well, he's right about one thing, Nasir quipped. If you haven't found her by now, it's highly unlikely you will. And why keep chasing a ghost? If she wanted to be found, she would have left something for you to find. Her decision was hasty, and we were in the middle of a tense time, Asim explained, holding his hand out as though it would warn his brothers not to tread further. I can't expect either of you to understand, so I won't bother explaining, but I know she would have wanted me to find her. Nasir sighed, rubbing his face with his hands. This search is stealing all your focus. Don't you get it? We have bigger things to worry about. With the new administration in the States and the crisis right here in our own backyard, we can't afford to miss international cues. You have to step up. I'm telling you as your brother first and your partner second. You'll meet someone else, Basiri said, shrugging. Asim glared at him. Sometimes Basiri seemed so young that it was laughable. At only 23, he was the baby of the brothers, but at moments like this, he might as well have been 15. He didn't understand the stinging bite of true love, the way it could caress and consume, the way it changed a man. I appreciate your concern, Asim said slowly, enunciating each word. But I have work to do and leads to follow up on, so if you'd please see yourselves out. Basiri and Nasir shared worried looks but stood, leaving the office in a tense silence. 4 months later. Asim's meeting with the new private investigator was a dead end from the start. The man was the 5th investigator he'd hired in as many months, and this guy was the least promising of them all. I thought you said you had CIA contacts, Asim scoffed, tossing his folder of results over the desk. This is a joke. There's nothing new here. You didn't even spell Aubrey's name right. The man scrambled to peer inside the folder, brows knit together. Sir, I assure you. You're fired. Just get out. I don't have time to waste. Asim sat rigidly in his desk chair until the man let himself out of his office. In the quiet of the workday, He let out a frustrated groan. His entire life since Elena's departure 5 months prior had been work, search, and repeat. Sleep was a coveted rarity, and even he was surprised by how the knot in his stomach continued to grow and fester. Because maybe even he, at this point, was hoping that the intensity would lessen, that maybe some forgetfulness would wipe at the slate, dull down the edges, allow him to resume a normal life pre-Elena. A soft knock sounded on his door. "What?" The door opened a crack, and his dark-haired secretary, Haida, poked her head in. "Sir, I have a few items." He nodded, and she slipped inside, rustling through papers in her arms. She ran through a list of his appointments and meetings for the rest of the week. When she reached the bottom of the list, she paused. "What else is there?" Asim typed furiously on the computer. "Some of the senior executives would like to schedule a meeting with you," she said quietly. Asim turned to look at her. "About what?" "About your appearance of late." She shrank a little as he leaned back in his chair, balling his fists. "They've been worried. We've all been worried. They just want to sit down with you and find out what's going on and what we can do to help." He shook his head, scoffing. "Help? I don't need help. I just need to find her." Hadea nodded, clutching her papers to her chest. "Yes, and one more thing. Your brother left a message for you." "Which one?" "Nasir. He says it's urgent that you call him back." Asim shook his head, turning back to his computer. "No, he only wants to give me grief. That's all any of them want." He resumed typing an email. "Anything else?" "No, sir. That's all." Hadea excused herself and shut the office door quietly behind her. Asim tensed in the silence, letting doubt wash over him. Nearly every day, sick possibilities plagued him. Maybe he'd never find her. Maybe once he did, he'd find out that she'd moved on, or maybe worse yet, she'd been hurt somehow. He was desperate to protect her, to be by her side. The constant pit in his stomach urged him onward, though he couldn't for the life of him figure out why the knot only grew in intensity instead of dwindling. "She needs you. You have to find her." It was the only thought that returned to him, the only thing that made sense. He reached for a pad of paper stashed in the top drawer. Scribbles of poetry lined the pages. He flipped to the first clean page at the back of it and paused, pen hovering over the sheet. What had started as a desperate search for an outlet in the beginning, right after Elena's sudden departure, had now blossomed into a habitual release. Something he did daily, like others might sit in prayer or visit a mosque. He scratched down a few new lines that occurred to him, and when the feeling passed, he could focus again. He turned back to his computer. After an hour of work, Haida called into his office. "Sir, your brother is on the line." He shook his head, even though she couldn't see it. "I told you, I'm not going to take his call today. Just tell him I'm busy." Hadea sighed a little and hung up. Asim replaced the phone, struggling to refocus on his work. No doubt Nasir just wanted to ream him for handing off more of his workload to the senior executives so that he could focus more fully on finding Elena. And he didn't need to hear more of what he already knew. If they had scheduled a meeting with him later this week, no doubt Nasir was calling to confirm their decision. And he didn't need more of that negativity in his life. It was all he could do to hang on and stay afloat, while his weight plummeted and anxiety consumed him. Couldn't they see that? A few moments later, Hadea rang again. "Sir, there's a call for you on line 1. "Who is it?" "I don't know," she said, and then switched the line quickly. Irritation sparked, and his brothers complained about his job performance. Wasn't it her job to know who called in? "Don't hang up," the voice on the line said. Asim sighed, rubbing at his face. Nasir, you had my secretary lie to me. It was the only way. Listen, if this is about the senior executives, I don't want to. No! Nasir's voice was firm, and it made his mouth clamp shut. I need you to listen to me. I sent you a package a few days ago. Did you get it? Asim straightened, his brother's tone echoing strangely through him. No, I don't think I did. He racked his brain, trying to think back to any arrivals. Maybe Hadea had mentioned something, and if she'd told him it was from Nasir, no doubt he would have told her to put it on hold indefinitely. I sent it to Hadea. She must have it. You need to open this package immediately. Please, brother. I want you to be happy. I love you. Asim furrowed his brow, unnerved by the strange display of emotion. The brothers said their goodbyes, and Asim stumbled over himself to open the door to his office. He poked his head out, searching for Hadea. There you are. Did my brother send the package? She nodded, eyes wide. Yes, you told me to put it in the mailroom. Go get it. She leapt to her feet and scurried away. He paced the threshold of his office while he waited, an unsettling cocktail of emotions coursing through him. The only question in his mind blasted through his limbs over and over again. What is this about? The severity in Nasir's voice warned him it could be very bad, but something deep inside prayed it was good, or at least promising. Hadea returned with a large, flat, rectangular package wrapped in brown paper. She passed it to him, and he took it to his desk, surprised by the weight of it, the solidness. He set it down gently and opened a corner of the paper, peeling it back. He revealed a gilded frame wrapped around a large painting. His eyes skated over the details before he became aware of the overall picture. Haunting ochre, vibrant crimson, breathtaking saffron. A lush property awash in the aching glow of sunset, tendrils of color and longing encompassing every square inch of the landscape. He stared at it, mouth parted, for what felt like an hour. It was his family's estate. A heartbreakingly beautiful rendition, more vivid and emotional than he'd ever seen in his entire 28 years of living there, like the artist had hunched over the canvas and simply cried paint onto it. His gaze slid to the bottom left corner, leaning forward to read the small script of the signature. He read it once and then again and again, each time his heart climbing higher into his throat. Elena Saint, CYR, 2017. Chapter 15. Elena sat her paintbrush down, resting her palms on her hips as she stretched out her lower back. Standing for so long in front of her easel was getting harder the further she progressed in the pregnancy, but it had to be done. It seemed this baby was kicking all the inspiration free inside of her, some days like shaking a wispy tree trunk and other days like kicking a beehive, and she was struggling to keep up with the ideas and colors swarming her. Her phone rang, and she reached for it, leaning against the side of the couch. Hello? Elena. It was Aubrey, and she sounded very serious. Elena's stomach plummeted. I have news. Okay. Good news? No, incredible news! Aubrey squealed a little, and then laughed. One of your paintings sold! Elena's eyebrows shot up. Aubrey had a connection in L.A. with an art gallery, and the owner agreed to show some of Elena's work there soon after they'd returned from their trip abroad. Elena sent over the new pieces as she finished them, and by now she had 6 on display. They'd been sitting with no movement for months, but she hadn't given up hope. All it would take was one to really get the ball rolling. Really? Which one? Aubrey paused. It was the one I told you not to sell. It was part of a silent auction. Elena grinned, but a pang of sadness shuddered through her. That painting of Asim's family's estate at sunset was one of her personal favorites, and looking at it evoked so many conflicting emotions from her time there. Maybe she'd put it up for sale specifically for that reason, to lay that chapter of her life to rest. Despite Asim's child growing within her, and her own impossible longing. How much did it sell for? She swirled a brush in the paint thinner, tapping it against the side of the cup. Aubrey paused. $500,000! The paintbrush slipped out of her hand, tumbling to the ground. Flecks of paint thinner dotted her sweatpants, and she sucked in sharply. What? I'm serious, Aubrey laughed. You're rich, lady! Plus, there's interest in your other work. You're big time now. Who bought it? Her words came out dry, like her voice had stuck in her throat. It was an anonymous sale. The phone rustled. But the owner of the gallery just called to tell me. He said that the money can be transferred to your account later today. You'll just need to call him. Her heart thudded in her chest. Do we at least know if the buyer was international or not? Aubrey tutted. It was from the U.S., hon. I'm sorry. Elena nodded, squashing the tiny sprout of hope. It's okay. The most important thing is that I have a buyer, and the little one and I are set for a good while. She rubbed her belly, a grin spreading across her face. Aubrey, this is incredible. It sure is. The friends chatted a bit more before hanging up, and then Elena turned to her work in progress. Admiring the impressionistic take on a cathedral in Istanbul she'd been perfecting. Inspiration swelled again, just in time with the baby's kick, so she reached for the paintbrush and resumed work on the background. As with every quiet moment lost in the meditative swirl of painting, her mind blanked and drifted. Echoes of thoughts crested at the back of her mind, like floating along a river and just skimming fingertips against the top of the water. Asim cropped up. He always did. Her mind seemed to drift to him at least hourly, if not more. He was a constant presence, lurking in the shadows, urging her to wonder, what is he doing now? Has he thought of me? Does he miss me as much as I miss him? But it wasn't the time to reach out to him. Not until the baby was born. Not until she found her footing as a mother. The doorbell rang, and she dipped the brush in her rinse cup, wiping her hands on a towel as she headed for the front door. Humming softly, mind still stuck on the gradient of color in the steeple of her work in progress, she tugged open the door and gasped. Asim stood in the doorway, eyes wide and imploring, a bouquet of flowers in his hand. Emotion overcame her, and just then, the baby kicked. Hard. She clutched at her stomach and slumped against the doorframe, feeling faint. Holy shit! She breathed, wincing as the baby kicked again. Elena? Asim's eyes careened over her, and he brought her into his arms. Are you okay? A little shocked, is all, she laughed feebly, relaxing into his embrace, the feel of his arms around her a welcome pressure she hadn't exaggerated one bit in her memory. Is this actually happening? She clutched at his waist, finding him solid beneath her grip. Definitely real and hard-bodied. She took a shaky breath and buried her face in his chest, overcome with the scent of him, and started to cry. Oh my God, you're here! I'm here, my darling, he murmured, stroking her hair, pressing her against him. His chest heaved beneath her, the echo of his deep breaths ringing through her ears. I've found you. He laughed and sniffed, and then laughed again. Oh my God, I've been looking for you since the day you left. I can't believe it's really you. After a while I thought maybe I'd never find you. Elena clutched at him, unwilling to let go long enough to make it into the house. Guilt crashed through her. She hadn't expected him to try to find her or even to care, and she'd left nothing behind for him, not even a last name. How did you find me? Your painting. He stroked her back, rocking back and forth slightly. Nasir saw it at a charity event in L.A. He knew right away what it was and who had done it. She laughed into his chest, and it turned into a sob. The baby grew restless inside, kicking up a storm, like maybe she knew that her daddy was here for the first time. She tensed, a hand drifting to her belly. Asim's hand trailed hers, smoothing over the roundness of her belly. He pulled back to look her in the face. "Are you?" She jerked her head into a nod, looking up at him. "Pregnant." Confusion creased his face, his eyes searching hers. "Is it ours?" Tension hung heavy in the air. Maybe he thought she'd gone off and found someone else, and so soon? "Not a chance. I'm yours, Asim." She grinned, sniffing back more tears. "Of course it is. It's a girl. I'm about 6 months along." A mixture of emotion crossed his face, a disbelieving smile cresting. "Are you serious?" She nodded. "I'm sorry I ran, but I knew you didn't want a family. I didn't want to rope you into it if you didn't want it, and I didn't want you to think I was just using it to keep you in a relationship." She sniffed, wiping at some tears that spilled over. "I couldn't stand the thought that maybe I'd just drag you into this against your will. That's not how I wanted things to go." Asim stroked her head, and looking down at her belly with wide eyes. "But you would have raised the child on your own?" "I thought that would be better than forcing you into a situation you didn't want to be in, being with you when you didn't want me." He blinked down at her. "Helena, I don't even have the words." He laughed a little. "I can't believe it. I'm going to be a father." Elena pushed the front door closed, grabbing the bouquet of flowers from him. She invited him inside the house, leading him to the kitchen so she could put the flowers in water. "This is my childhood home, where my parents raised me. You can see them on the wall there." Asim wandered through her house, as if he'd just been teleported from the other side of the world unexpectedly. His face showed wonder and shock. She'd never seen him so overcome. "This is amazing." He slid into a chair in the breakfast nook, watching her like she'd sprouted an extra arm. "I'm so sorry." She glanced back at him as she emptied the packet of plant food into the vase. "For what?" "For making you think I didn't want you, that I wouldn't want this." He gestured to the air between them. "But your leaving made me understand what I do want. I want you, only you, and I'm never letting you go." Elena turned to him, clutching the flowers in her fist. Her lip trembled. "Really?" Asim stood, coming to her with the most heartfelt look in his eyes she'd ever seen. "I want to be with you, Elena. I love you. I loved you in Beirut, too. I just didn't know how to say it. I was too caught up in figuring how to get rid of that horrible engagement. By the time I realized I was falling for you, I felt trapped between the arrangement we'd made and my feelings for you." He sighed, gnawing at the inside of his lip. "Please, say you'll be with me. Say you'll have me. I want us to have a family. I want to be in your life and in your child's life." Elena set the flowers in the vase and laughed, wiping at tears that had spilled. "Well, you took the words right out of my mouth." Asim's face lit up, his hand circling her waist. "So I can tell my mother I made the right choice all along?" "Tell her this is the engagement she shouldn't dissolve," Elena said through laughter and tears. "I love you, Asim. I want us to be a little family, together forever." Asim took her head in his hands and crushed his lips to hers. Stars exploded behind her eyelids, and for the first time in 6 months, the knot of anxiety dissolved inside her, giving way to expansive bliss. Epilogue. Asim trailed his fingertips over the curve of Elena's hip, up over the dip of her waist, tracing the swell of her breast. He'd never seen the effects of pregnancy on a woman before, and being by Elena's side through the end and then the birth and beyond was the most special and illuminating gift. "You're so beautiful," he murmured, pressing his lips to hers. She often complained of her post-pregnancy body, but he hoped that she'd take his ceaseless appetite for her curves as proof of her perfection. He couldn't get enough, and now, on the first night of their honeymoon in Hawaii, the need arose again, urgent and hungry. "You're eager for number 2, it seems," Elena murmured, laughing. She turned onto her back, welcoming him on top of her. The soft sheets rustled as he eased into place. They'd waited until the baby was 6 months old to go on their honeymoon, even though they'd married in the final month of her pregnancy. Sophia had been both amused and dismayed by the breach of tradition, but their wedding photos showed a vibrant, joyful family, including an immensely pregnant Elena. "We should wait a bit longer for that," Asim murmured, skipping kisses over her collarbone. "But I can't wait much longer. You've made me the happiest daddy in the world." She giggled, hooking her arms around his neck, locking her ankles behind him. "You know, when we met, I never pegged you as the eager daddy type." "And I never pegged you as the frisky mother type either, but here we are." He covered her mouth with his, and they kissed passionately, drawing out each kiss, exploring the other as though it was the first time. Elena made a small noise, and he rolled onto his back, bringing her along with him. She sat up on top of him, arching a brow.
Sorry, readers. Here's where we fade to black due to YouTube explicit content guidelines. If you dream for the steam, you'll need to take a look in the book.
"Did you hear that?" She turned, looking toward the door of the master bedroom. They'd left it open a crack, in case the baby cried during the night. A crib had been set up in the second hotel bedroom. Just as Asim opened his mouth to answer, the baby hiccuped and then began crying. Elena smiled a little, pushing off him. "I'll go get her this time." She pressed a kiss to his lips and headed toward the door. "Time to give Mommy's boobs back to little Eleanor." Asim laughed, flopping back onto the bed, listening to the small noises as Elena lifted Eleanor from the crib and murmured to her. After a few moments of quiet, Asim followed her to the other room, already missing both of them. Elena sat on the couch nursing Eleanor, who looked around the dimly lit room with wide eyes. A grin spread across his face, the same reaction every time he saw his beautiful family together. Nothing could be more beautiful than his naked wife nursing their perfect creation. He eased onto the couch beside her, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. "This is my favorite part," he said, smoothing his fingers against Eleanor's forehead. "Living proof of our family. Seeing you nurse. Watching our gorgeous child grow." He kissed her shoulder again. "I love you both so very much." Elena glanced back at him, tears in her eyes. "I would tell you how much I love you if I had the words." She sighed, gaze drifting down to Eleanor. "But all I have is our daughter and my paintbrushes to speak for it. The purest testaments of my love for you." She smiled, welcoming the kiss he coaxed out of her. Asim twirled a piece of her hair around his finger, grinning down at her. "I bet you never imagined you'd actually end up with a wife that day you asked me to pose as one on the street." She laughed, shifting Eleanor against her breast. They loved to joke about their unlikely turn of events. Truly, it was a story that would become legend in his family, something to inscribe on the walls of the palace. Yet I ended up with both a wife and a baby. He nuzzled his nose against hers, lodging the trifecta of the moment. Elena's soft heat against him, the sweet sounds of Eleanor nursing at her breast, the slow pulse of contentment that accompanied him daily, ever since he'd laid eyes on Elena's painting in Beirut. And what's more, I got exactly what I never knew I was looking for. This has been The Sheikh's Fake Fiancée, Azhar Sheikh's Book 1, written by Leslie North, narrated by Roberto Scarlato. Copyright 2017 by Relay Publishing. Production copyright 2017 by Relay Publishing.